Hello and welcome to day two of the Circuit Breaker Invitational 2023, the first ever Circuit Breaker. We are here to see the top cut. I am Neuropanzer. I will be your host today. I am joined on comms today by Yasengrin. Hello, Yasengrin.
Hello. Nice to be
I
on.
say I'm the host. Yasengrin is actually running the stream today. um, so thank you for all that work behind the scenes. And then I'm also joined by Orbital Tangent.
Hello, how y'all doing?
Doing pretty great. We got some good Netrunner to watch today. Speaking of, let me go ahead and jump into a game and ask if we are good to stream.
Already did, actually.
Oh, you did? Okay. All right, perfect. In that case, we are going to see the matchup of Tuno versus Anarchomushroom this round. This is an outfit versus 419 matchup. We saw a little bit of these IDs yesterday. Obviously, as you'd expect, since they did end up actually making the cut, but we also saw a decent amount outside of just these decks that made the cut. So I think I'd like to pass this over to you to start with, Jeff and or Orbs. What do you think of the outfit versus 419 matchup, especially given Tuno is the outfit player and it decided to play outfit into 419 rather than picking runner against an Arco Corp.
Yeah, I think the idea behind this outfit list is it's actually it's not the outfit list I was expecting to see with a lot of fast advance. It's just like really glaciary and frustrating. It's got 16 big ice, including two
Mm-hmm.
Chiashis. Um,
Ooh.
So its goal is like I'm gonna make a lot of money, and then because everyone's teching for Reality Plus and Ag Infusion, whatever, I'm going to try and exploit the fact that most people's decks aren't built to break lots of big ice a lot. Um, and I think it's a very decent call. I would make the same call that Tuno is making here, where the
Yeah.
multi-access that 419 has is a single Wake Implant and a single Docklands Pass and a Stargate, which is like a decent
Yep.
amount, but not, if you can just put one big chunky ice on R&D, it's quite hard to Stargate through that every turn, even with a couple points of bad pub.
Well, yeah,
Um,
and that's the
Absolutely.
key, right? All of this big ice makes that all of those require repeated accesses to use, or repeated successful runs at least. None of those are we're not talking about finality here, which just suddenly gives you four cards out of nowhere. We're talking, okay, you have to run HQ through this resed bulwark multiple times to get a few extra cards off R&D. That kind of sucks to have to do.
It absolutely does because those big ice in the outfit, they are not cheap. Even when you are going through them with 2 to 3 bad pub, the ice themselves actually tend to absorb those credits more than you would
Mhm.
think. So the point on repeated Stargate runs being difficult is a really good one.
Well, and like let's be very clear here. Anarcho Mushroom, they are on like the most efficient breaker suite. Basically, I see a paperclip, I see an Amakua, I see a Unity, I see a Begalter. If you want efficient breakers, that's basically the most efficient breaker suite. And this bulwark still costs you 7 to get through every single time. That's discounted a little
Exactly.
bit because of bad publicity. But bad publicity only goes so far.
Yeah, absolutely. The other
Oh,
thing
there's
to
a
note
food
about
dome off the
this,
top.
ooh,
that's always
not in a
a really
terrible
big
position, but
deal.
not what you want to see.
Yeah. No, here's we see one of the interesting cards, and actually a little package I wanted to talk about out of this outfit list. We see an interesting card in the bin right now, which is Arc Lockdown. Actually, if you click in and see, there's also a building blocks there. There are definitely
Mhm.
some interesting. Some of them are one-offs, some of them are not one-offs, but just an interesting package of operations out of this outfit list. And one of the cards that helps support them is a 1x Gaslight. So 1x Gaslight can, if you see your the runner end turn with a paperclip in the bin, you can go ahead, res your Gaslight, find your 1x arc lockdown, and completely ruin their day, for instance.
Hmm.
It's a cute little package. Um, okay, we see a pinhole come down here onto an open R&D. Both assets are going to get popped, which means that the only legal target is this Chrysium. Chrysium will go down.
And then
Oh,
we see
that's the
that
Gaslight
gaslight
straight
go.
out of R&D.
And
Oh
another
man,
reg capture too.
a reg capture. Wow. So Anarchomushroom obviously doesn't want to have to deal with this bulwark. So far, hasn't really had to deal with this bulwark. Just
Yep.
4 points out of an open R&D, and a second ice going onto the remote, and still no ice on R&D. Just trusting R&D to hold out right now.
Yeah, I think Anarcho is being like, hey, the way I'm going to win this match gets way easier if I only have to bust the remote once. And so
Yep.
just tunneling on R&D, taking the access as they can, getting their pinholes here. Like Anarcho is drawing really well, but is also drawing a lot. You'll note, they're halfway through their stack, and it's turn 6, or through their R&D.
Mhm.
Or no, it is their stack. Excuse me. What am I saying? And so
Well,
Another ice.
it
Wow.
puts a third ice on the remote, just keeping this R&D open. I mean, as we've seen, this makes juicy pinhole targets as well on R&D. We do see 2 pinholes down, so you only expect one more of those because you don't expect any recursion on pinhole out of their deck from an Mushroom. But a Docklands Pass comes down and a Wake Implant comes down, so definitely committing to getting through this bulwark a few times, even though it's very expensive.
Ooh,
Finding
another rig
another
capture.
red cap out
6
of
points.
HQ.
oof.
Wow.
And seeing 2 more off of R&D here. And finally, a Rashida gets through, and now the tempo can probably start swinging back to Tuno a little bit. But it is
It
being
really
down
okay.
6
I
to
was gonna say it
0
really needs
is
ice on
tricky.
R&D, and finally there is ice on R&D.
Yeah.
Mhm. I don't know if it's going to be enough, though.
I mean, it's still net
Um,
5 credits to get an HQ access here, and there's no other breakers available, so Tuno has probably bought themselves a good chunk of time.
Mhm.
yeah, it definitely has a little more time than just the issue is it's on 0 points. Okay, now it's on 2 points with an Atlas counter, but it is still down 2 to 6. That is a tough place to be as outfit where you tend to have a lot of small agendas. Just like, a ticky-tack access out of R&D and the game is just over because you have these 2 hostile takeovers.
Yeah, and you are feeling the world where you can't take that much more bad pub because it starts, you don't have your big ice res just yet, and
Oh, here's a
it's going to be a
bulwark.
struggle. Or a
Boomerang will
trebuchet.
take care of that bulwark. Oh, sorry, trebuchet, and Boomerang will take care of that trebuchet. So
Yeah,
this will
and
be 2 cards.
yep, nothing
Neither of them
Nothing
an
off the
stolen.
agenda.
top.
Neither of them are they all in HQ right now?
Quite possibly. One thing
Well,
Anarcho
potentially,
has
yeah.
seen a lot of this ice, just because they were seeing a lot of R&D, though the Rashida does help break that lock.
Agreed. Agreed. And this could very well be the third Rashida in the remote right now to try to break through some of that lock again. But okay, so that's just an Afshar on the outside of HQ. A fantastic card to have here because that's a cheap res, which at the moment you actually kind of need if you're
I
Tuno.
I actually really like this run from Anarcho because if Tuno reses this Afshar, they're going to really struggle to res anything beefier than a border control on server 2.
Yeah.
Um,
Though a
and
trebuchet would be okay because at least you get the 3 back.
that is true. You would get the 3 back, and you'd probably get to trash the Wake Implant.
Yeah.
Um,
But no res instead. This is a hostile takeover that was cooking in server 2, so that would have actually been game if an Mushroom had been able to get in. Obviously, I think the question is, would an Mushroom actually be able to get in? And the answer is probably no. But this does bring Tuno back up to 18 credits, so it has a fair amount of runway to actually res some of this ice. Oh, hold on, too quick. Asking if it can undo the score.
they're
Oh,
playing
what's
too
too
big to
big to fail
Yep.
fail,
first?
and then doing the
Yep.
hostile.
So everything I just said is true, but it's even more true now because on 28 credits, it has even more runway to try to enact the game plan.
Mhm.
5 bad publicity. So these runs start to look a little less imposing until the second ice are rezzed.
Yes.
But with 28 credits, it certainly has enough money to start doing that.
Yep.
Yeah, so
So
what you're counting on here as the corporation, as outfit, is that you have enough chunky ice that the first one's going to absorb all the bad pub. Um, and that the second one is going to be the one that matters, and that you're going to be able to tax, like you were saying with Bulwark, like 7 credits on it.
Oh, hold on. We have so I will point out we have border control here, which with Wake Implant on the board does put us in a position Wake Implant doesn't have any counters right now, but in the future, this definitely puts us in a position like Turning Wheel used to, where there's an interesting interaction between border
I,
control and
I'm
Wake
gonna
Implant and
interrupt you
spending the
real quick.
counters.
Actually, the
Oh,
interaction is different.
oh,
Um,
it's different. Okay, never
yes,
mind then.
wake implant is when you breach, so it happens after the last paid ability.
Oh,
Okay, so
okay, okay.
we see Tuno pulling a regulatory capture out of their deck on this
Well,
access.
understandable. Regulatory capture is a 2-2 agenda right now, so
Yeah,
very, very scoreable.
and that
And,
is in
and
fact
just
what we
lowering
see.
that agenda density, right? So now
Yeah,
now it's
Hmm.
5-5. All of the red captures are gone, so it would take an audacity to score either an Atlas or okay, there's no above the law, so it would have to be an Atlas. But there are 2 Atlases left, and there is
there's
1
one
audacity
audacity in the
left.
list.
Yeah.
Um, So Anarcho is going to try and take a single off of R&D here. I think it costs them 1 to break the border control. It costs them, what is it, 5, 6, 7? So 5. So they actually only spend, I believe, 1 real credit on this entire
Yeah.
run. Yeah, you can see they went from 9 to 8.
Border
Uh,
control.
border control fires.
So this will be 1 real access off of R&D, and it is not an agenda.
Yeah, that border
Is
control
the win
fire
in
makes
hand?
me wonder. Yeah. Oh, it's not in
Oh,
hand.
it's
Okay.
not GG, predictive planogram.
Yeah, I think that border
Breaking through
control
this R&D lock.
that border control pop usually is indicative of the wins in hand, but that was not actually the case here.
Oh, that's what it means. It means I have another ice to throw down here that's going to be a lot more expensive.
Building blocks, a
And
card that
building
was
blocks for Chiashi. Yeah.
yeah, a card that was very rarely played, but I do think the building blocks Chiashi is basically why what it was meant for. Um,
Yeah.
Hmm.
so
I mean,
uh,
Chiashi is blocks, right? Look at the art. It makes sense. It all fits together.
it's
You're
true.
building the
Hey,
Chiashi. You're building the blocks.
a notable interaction here that's actually kind of cool with this deck is a lot of runners, knowing that regulatory capture is a card now, uh, aren't going to really want to help you res your illicit ice. So they're going to
Yeah.
make more targeted runs. One of the things that building blocks does allow you to do is pre-res those bulwarks, not only at a discount,
It has to
but
be barrier. So
because,
yeah. Oh, bulwarks. Sorry, you said bulwarks, not trebuchets. My bad.
yep. So not only at a discount, but you're also getting some of that paid for by your ID ability. So you're getting a
Yeah.
bulwark up for uh, a net 2 credits, and you're getting that bad publicity to turn on your regulatory capture. So it seems like
Okay.
a weird include that building blocks, but it's actually like a really cool card in this deck.
I'd buy that for $2. Now, okay, so what's the current status check on how much it costs to run R&D? Jiashi costs 7, which is 2 real credits. And then Trebuchet now actually starts getting a little punishing because it costs effectively 5 credits.
Yeah.
But you actually have to have the 7 up front. So it costs 9 real credits to get into R&D, and then you get 2 back.
All right. Yeah, so I mean, it makes sense. Anarcho has to think about, do I try and bust the server 2 with 20 credits? It's going to be pretty tricky to make that work. Do I
Mhm.
try and single off HQ? I'm trying to think, like, how many. There's 2 Rashidas and a Gaslight in Archive, so there's Actually, not that. It's like and a spin doctor, so the list probably, if I'm remembering correctly, I guess I could.
There are 2 more spin doctors and 1 more NGO that could be a non-agenda in the remote.
Yeah.
Oh, no, they're both NGOs in the bin, so it's just
Okay.
the spin doctors.
It's
And
just
actually, there's 1 in the bin, so it's just the 1 spin doctor.
no. Oh, right, because one's been removed from the game. Thank you
Yeah.
for me for blindness. Yeah, so it's a Rashida, a spin doctor, or probably a Project Atlas. And so you
Yeah.
have to really think about, can I get into server 2? Can I do it twice? Um, so yeah, I
Well,
think we're gonna
drawing,
Deuces
finding
Wild.
deuces. Okay, so exposing Trebuchet on the remote, in the middle of the remote. That's not good news for Anarcho, I would say. They probably want to see a cheaper ice to get through.
It's probably okay. Okay, wow. So this is multiple
Whoa, okay.
trebuchets. I wonder
Does it start at
actually.
position 0 or position 1? I forget.
It starts at position 0. Oh, so they actually knew this was the
Okay, so
trebuchet. Never
this
mind.
was the one. Yeah, this was
Yeah,
the
yeah.
one that was exposed in that case. So
So yeah,
the
I
Galter
th-
does get through that. There is
yeah
enough money for a third trebuchet.
I think it becomes really interesting on what this other ice becomes, because if this is like
Yeah.
if this is something like trebuchet barrier, you can actually
Oh,
second time through actually let the trebuchet trash your cards
true.
and then reinstall the paperclip.
Oh, border control. That seems pretty bad because now you have to break Trebuchet twice in a turn.
No, this is actually I think Anarcho is in here. Um, because if this border control gets popped, they can just run through this server and trash their rig. Um,
Huh. Is there well are there enough credits to no there aren't enough credits to oh no there's yeah because of the bad pub there is enough money to break the Trebuchet subroutine that matters. Yeah. Okay, so we had a misclick on draw a card for click 4 there. Yeah, Tuno being very gracious here. Obvious misclick. I think it's probably pretty clear to the crowd that that's the case, but
yeah. I mean, I think, and as an Arco here, like you actually don't even need the Begalter to get into R&D here, and I just feel like the game, like you just have to go, do you have it, right?
yeah.
And like it's gonna make your life more difficult, but you lose. It's just picking which way you want to lose, and one of them gives you an option to win.
Yeah, which does make a lot of sense. I mean, this as we talked about, there's only 2 things this could be that aren't a winning agenda, and you know, it would be a pretty sick bluff if it is actually just the Rashida.
It
Yes,
would
it
be.
would.
Like at that point, like it really deserves the win for that bluff. Triple checking that there's no boom in the deck. There is in fact no
Ah,
boom in the deck.
Oh,
losing
actually,
So
just oh, I
percentages on
guess
the
you can't.
bluff.
You don't even. You can just break the trebuchet, right? Because it's
yeah.
free. I forgot. Okay, this is. Oh, and it's the
Oh, it's not the
Atlas.
bluff.
Wow.
Wow.
So had to make the right read there. Did have to decide I need to go into server 2 and find whatever this is and rewarded by finding the winning atlas. So, Audacity would have done it there.
Audacity
Audacity
would
would have
have
done it
done it.
because the atlas was there. But
Unfortunately for Tuno, they only are on one Audacity in the list.
yeah,
Uh,
it's difficult for it to find that Audacity at the right time without the gaslight. So,
yeah, yeah. Players, player as is tradition in Netrunner. As soon as you play, you go, "Oh God, I can't believe I made this mistake." In the post match clarity. Um,
yep. Yep.
but so it goes. Um, but
Well,
yeah, no,
well
great
played to
game.
both.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
Arco.
congrats to another.
Yeah, congrats to Anarcho. And oh wow, top of R&D was also an agenda. Tuno was just
Oh no.
very, very flooded this game. It seems like across all.
At least at the critical moment, yeah. And definitely earlier. The top of R&D just gave up so many points early. So
Yeah, the
I believe
strategy
that's the
of
final. No, no, there's still a few games going right now, but
Yeah, do you want to go
the
and
strategy
ask?
of leaving R&D open, I don't know. I don't know if that paid off.
It was definitely a bit of a tricky one. So
my instinct is to say that the versus 419 game is more likely to not be quite at the end yet. So I'm gonna
that's
jump into MJP versus Ranji to ask if they are cool with us streaming.
sounds good.
Yeah, it is 0-0.
Uh, all right, are they good to be streamed?
I have one yes, and I also have to zoom out. Oh, we have two yeses, so we are good to jump in here.
Great.
So this is a pinhole threading coming down on archives. That defuses an urban renewal that was at 1. So pinhole threading, obviously, we've seen it be fantastic tech all weekend against many things. One of the many things that it does is it does actually trash urban renewal without having to run through the ice. Unfortunately, Overseer Matrix does still trigger, but Ranji on plenty of credits, able to just clear those tags and not even care about it. This is a game with a large credit differential, which is really, if you are the 419 versus the OB, you kind of need there to be a large credit differential.
Um, I'm just going to very quickly call out a card that is definitely going to get discussed. Forged activation orders. I think it's basically irrelevant in this matchup, but it is in the bin, so maybe it got played. We can
Yes.
dream. Um,
I'm gonna control F. I need to know.
I apologies to the stream. I have to zoom out a lot to get all 20 remotes that have been created this game. I think this is an op list that a lot of people have been playing, and it's a really powerful list. It was kind of, I always call it the Bridgman op list, just to because that was the first person I saw running it in a major event. And the deck got much better with the release of Parhelion, because the idea is that you can have an urban renewal trash, and then using the op ID ability, search your deck for a Drago. The runner has just lost 4 cards from their hand, and then you can advance the Drago twice, give them 1 tag, and then play end of the line. And that was how you
Mhm.
kill. The deck used to have to kill by fast advancing a Azef protocol, um, which becomes a much more fiddly combo. Um,
Mhm.
that said, I think the deck, you know, uh, has some challenges if the runner's like, okay, I can just go to 30 credits, trash your urban renewals when they come up, and then, what are you going to do? Because the
Yeah.
deck really doesn't have any way to score out, and it can sometimes struggle to be forcing enough on its goes.
Right.
Um,
It's very interesting to point out that there is a resed gaslight on the table, and Ranji just doesn't care enough to go trash it. Because it isn't threatening right now. What's this gaslight gonna do to you? Nothing. It's better to not spend the quick and the 2 credits.
yeah, people
I
also
also have terrible news. I did control F, and forged activation orders is in the bin because it was discarded after a class act. I apologize to everyone in the crowd
No!
to have to
uh,
deliver this terrible news. Unfortunately, it's not super relevant right now. There's 19 credits on MJP's side, so well,
ooh.
okay, that's doing something. It's about to be 14 credits on MJP's side.
Yep. So we see MJP using their drudge work to actually gain a lot of economy here, along with the excavator, which is definitely a card you often do want to trash. But I think rongydoge just trying to decide that they'd rather just get some sense of what's going on in HQ, and saying no, you really don't have it. And there's only 9 cards, maybe a few more with the drudge work and spin doctor. There's not that many cards actually left in R&D. So it seems like we're going for a mill out win here as the runner.
Oh, bless. Bless. You love to see it. Spin Doctor is going to help with that a little bit. We do see an urban renewal and an urban renewal get shuffled back in, so those will be coming soon to an Overseer Matrix Clown Car server near you.
I love that this op is continuing a tradition with this ID, which is making traditionally garbage cards into something worth playing. These overseer matrices being kind of a key part of this deck, and ops past having formicary
Whoa.
being a key
Hold
card as
on.
well.
We have big news here. An agenda that we know is an agenda just got advanced 3 times.
Oh my
This is an
goodness.
SDS. Um,
What?
does this force Ranji to actually install a breaker?
This may force an actual breaker install. However, there is a paperclip in the bin which will conveniently go through that border control and oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, it's an
We
Osmosis protocol.
misunderstood. This was a OZF protocol and it trashes a cat's cradle. So in theory, and a dirty laundry. So in theory, there's some world where you could maybe engineer a lockout.
Do you see the play here? It was advance OZF protocol to try to hit the pinhole.
Yes.
That's sick. I love that. Finding a hard-hitting news in HQ. Hard-hitting news. The news just doesn't have the same edge today that it used to.
It's kind of amazing how much it fell off like kind of suddenly. And I think honestly, like so I'll pull up Rongi's list in a moment, but like it is spending 6 influence on 3 copies of Fermenter, and that I think we are seeing the benefits of that. When your corp list is fairly slow, you have to fear the red orb. So
Yeah, we see a fermenter was trashed to gain 8 earlier in the game, and there is another fermenter sitting on the table, ticking up, currently representing 14 credits if it gets to the next turn. So the red orb is an orb. Like I understand that people like the green orb, but the red orb is an orb, and people need to respect it.
indeed, yeah. So we're seeing once again, MJP doing
Oh,
more.
okay, okay. Oh, Gaslight got trashed, but it was not to use Gaslight's effect. It was for Svigator Excavator.
Yeah, and it is notable that the credit differential is closing. So if MJP can
Yeah.
force a run into server 5 before the game ends, it actually becomes a pretty legitimate threat because credit totals will be
Is
much
is
closer.
that possible though? Dredgework is going to shuffle back some agendas, but that just, I mean, that buys 2 turns in which Ranji can. Oh no, I clicked for 4 and forced you to draw another card.
Yeah, if rongydoge can draw the last pinhole threading, then
Yeah.
I think he's got it because he can just trash the pinhole threading before it can get recurred, and that would be the final urban renewal with absolutely no recursion, um, and that was probably the only OZF protocol, so it's pretty plausible here. Uh,
Oh, Ranji is actually dropping a breaker. We do say a Bugalter. There is a Cat's Cradle in the bin. I think, without knowing the lists, that might be a bold call to make, but the only ice that it actually breaks is Afshar.
there's actually 3.
There's also a Whoredom. There's also a
Yeah.
Whoredom.
I should be there. Yeah, so there's a Hordom, an Afshar, and a Mausolus in this list, though I think some of those are probably in archives already. In fact, the Afshar is already in archives. We don't know about
And
the location of the other 2.
and there's always the panic button on Ranji's side of there is an Amakua. So
Yeah.
it's not like you can't break any code gates ever if you discard your Cat's Cradle.
Yep. And then we just pop Fermenter for a low 16 credits.
A casual 16.
Yep.
So Amakua does come down. This will break border control next turn to go trash this urban renewal, take a couple tags, and then clear them. They're both gone. 21 turns later. These fermenters. What we're sensing from that is MJP spent a fair amount of time purging those fermenters out. Like if
Quite
you search back in
possibly.
the chat for purge, you're going to see it multiple times.
Oh, is there actually multiple purges?
I believe so.
Wild. Someone was asking if there was a sentry in this
Yeah, there
list.
are 3 distinct purges in this game,
Wow.
all for fermenter. There are no other viruses that were on the table that mattered.
Looking
All
for the
right, we're
fork
going
here.
to
Oh,
MJP is going to pay
Beacon?
31 credits to do a trace 35 here. This is actually a really critical turn to do that, because they are also forcing the urban renewal fork here.
Yeah.
And that will force rongydoge to end with a lot of tags. Now, I think the line here as rongydoge is to take the 4 tags, pinhole threading the urban renewal going to 6 tags, trash the excavator, and clear 2 tags. Because MJP will not be able to boom you, and then you get a whole extra turn to go and clear the remaining 4 tags.
That's a sick play. I like that play. I love I love the incredible high level net runner of you are at 39 credits. I don't care. I'm gonna hard hitting you anyway. You only see plays like this at the high level.
Oh, Anarcho pointing out that you cannot, only one Overseer Matrix could proc anyway. So it's actually only 5 tags.
Oh,
Because I forgot that
Only.
Overseer Matrix does actually have a cost to use.
oh, very true. And that takes MJP even farther away from Boom.
Yes.
So if you trash the Sphegator, really it's not happening.
Okay, so rongydoge paid into the trace.
Okay.
Um, oh, and no free lunch comes down. This also deals with the
Mm,
threat, because
yeah.
now MJP would have to spend the best defense, but that means they no longer have the clicks to deal with it. So this is just another way of solving the same problem. And this is often sort of the challenge with this card. Now, we did lose the last pinhole threading here, which is probably relevant.
Okay, so that is 1 tag from Drago.
I
No
actually,
free lunch will remove that tag.
yeah. It's interesting. I wonder if that absolutely needed to happen or not. Because MJP had 3 credits. What am I talking about? It did
Yeah.
absolutely need to
Yeah.
happen.
100% needed to. That is your dead mate range.
Yeah.
Now, border control, this only costs 1 or 2 credits to get through. Oh, it looks like this may be a misclick.
It's probably I make the click and immediately.
Ah. Immediately think about whether this was the right click to make.
Yes.
Now, do you maybe go after R&D here or archives? Because the win's
It's
got to be somewhere, right?
it's getting to the point where R&D might not have enough non-agenda cards or like a mill might be possible just from the number of cards that are agendas in R&D and the number of cards that are trashable.
Yeah, there's definitely a line where you just like run R&D a bunch of times here. But we're gonna
Yeah.
see rongydoge instead just go and contest this remote.
I think
Uh,
that makes sense. Looks like only going to break the end the run subroutine, so preserving those credits to try to remove some of these tags. Border control does end the run.
we're gonna search for a 3 cost, but there's actually no 3 cost. It looks like.
Able to find in your 4-card R&D. Oh no. Uh, I imagine even if there were a 3 in R&D, you might not want to fetch it up there because you might be liable to get decked at that point. So
Yeah.
Ranchi does end the turn on 2 credits and 0 tags.
People are asking in the
MJP
chat if
starting
all
turn.
HHNs are gone. All HHNs are gone, which actually I think makes this line from rongydoge much stronger. I think if there was an
Yes.
HHN still in hand, it'd be a real challenge.
Ice on HQ. I wonder where the agendas are.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, you draw 4 and click for a credit. I think like there's not actually a threat here, and you just wait for the corp to deck out. I think.
Unseen. So that is stealing an SDS that gets one. So as long as Ranji doesn't get killed this turn, this is game.
Yeah,
And
and
sure enough, there is no kill in hand.
there is no way to kill. So
Yeah.
that is it. I don't know if that's quite the last game on the round. Let me check, but I
Yep.
have to imagine it probably is. So
Congratulations to Ranji for winning via decking the corp out on stream at the Circuit Breaker Invitational. Certainly not the most traditional way to win a game, but for this 419 list, it is a realistic path to victory,
yeah,
especially
Absolutely.
against Ob.
against this brand of op list, it was definitely going to be the case.
Yeah. So well played both. I think MJP
Yeah.
went for the line that he had to go for, and Ranji was just able to defuse it. So I am looking. It looks like that was the last round. That was the last game of the match. So we can, if we want to, take a look at the results of the other matches.
You know, that would make sense rather than going to the intro screen. Let me load those up. All right.
So it looks like our top seed Jinsei, who has been killing it all weekend, I think, has not actually lost a game so far. The one quote unquote loss on the record from yesterday was an ID. So Jinsei, staying up at the top here, did win, chose to run, and did win with, let's see, that was with Hoshiko against the NEH of Cardboard. So Jinsei will continue on to the upper bracket. Janktavist will also continue on to the upper bracket with a win over percomis. Anarchomushroom and Ranji, as we saw, also won their matches. So those four will be in the upper bracket. They have the inside track to the grand finals here.
We do. And actually, I believe we have pairings up for the next round. So we will see Jinsei versus Janktavist and Anarchomushroom versus rongydoge on the top half of the bracket, and then Cardboard versus percomis and Tuno versus MJP on the lower half of the bracket.
If they are open to it, I would love to see Cardboard versus percomis, because that is the one kit that made the cut.
Yes,
There is
that
a
would be a
Riel
fun one
kit
to see.
peddler. There is a transhuman in the cut, and we have a chance to actually see that. So let me see if they are open to that once they have the table up.
And then actually, Orbs, if you want to let me know when the nice looking bracket is updated, no rush. Oh, it is already.
It is indeed
Oh,
updated.
we have a
Let me
nice
go.
looking bracket this time. Nice.
Let me go pull that up. So this is the result of. I gotta zoom out just a little bit. Shoot, come on. Is it this? There it is. Okay. So yeah, this is the result of round one. So higher seed won on the top half, lower seed won on the bottom half. 3 runner wins actually, and 1 corp win. I've heard a lot of people
They told
saying
me this was a court meta.
I was told this was a court meta as well, and it may still end up being a court meta. But
Okay, let me. The table is up. Not both of them are in yet, but
yeah, we'll do so players are asking for a very reasonable 5 minutes between the rounds because some of them went all the way to time. So
that's valid. Should we break for a couple minutes and come back
that sounds like a plan. So
all right. So everyone out there in the audience, do not go away. We have a fantastic set of games coming up. I mean, starting with, we get to see Kit next round. If nothing else, you should be excited for that. But yeah, we've got a lot of Netrunner coming up, so going to soon. Welcome back to round 2 of the Circuit Breaker Invitational Top Cut. I know we promised you Kit before the break. Unfortunately, that player does prefer not to be streamed, and we will respect those wishes as long as possible. So we are going to switch over and show you one of the most interesting decks left in the cut. And that is the only HB deck to make the top cut is an ASA group list. And this is not your standard ASA group list. This is a Dr. Vientiane Keeling ganked Warroid tracker ASA group list. I honestly don't know what to say. There are so many interesting things here that we could talk about, and we'll just talk about them as they come up because the game is going to start in about a minute. Once Jinsei is ready to start the game, it looks like there was a Wi-Fi reset. But
Okay.
we
I will pull the
we
list up on stream for people to talk about.
please do because there are incredible cards in this deck.
You know, the only thing I have to say about this Asa is Asa, you were the chosen glacier. It was said you would destroy the runners, not join the prisons.
I
Yeah.
don't understand why you would say that. Like, if you're supposed to destroy the runners, why would you not become the prison? That's the best way to do it.
That's fair.
So this
Yeah,
list
all right.
is very different from a lot of standard lists that we've seen for Asa for the last 6 months or so.
Yeah.
This is going all in on Keeling prison kill, basically.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So
Well,
it's
and it answers the question of what's the best way to set up Dr. Vientiane Keeling kill. We've seen answers from Ag Infusion that are like, just throw Nasty Ice in front of it. That's how you do it. That's boring. The best way to set up Dr. Vientiane Keeling kill is ganked loop.
yeah. Yeah, ganked loop. Like you can make a server with Mr. Hendrick, ganked, Managarm Skunkworks, 3x Warroid tracker, so if they go and trash anything, you're real sad. This list
we should
is
probably, and I expect to have fewer remotes in this one.
yeah.
Mm.
This being on 13 upgrades, the most of any of its card types, is a pretty unusual thing in a corp list. For those of you
Yes.
just getting into the game, I would say this maybe is the first one.
There are 13 upgrades, 10 ice. What? This is wild. I have not been this excited to see a deck in a long time.
Just to pull up the runners list real quick, I'm going to call it a Reg Boat Shipgo. 2 copies of Endurance, 3 copies of Pinhole Threading, 2 copies of Deuces Wild. That is the influence. Everything else is Anarch good stuff. Does have a lot of econs, so 3 liberated accounts, 3. Well, I call it a lot. It's got 3 liberated, 3 fermenters, and then a bunch of event econ. And
then 3 companions as well, 2 paladins and 1 mystic. So I mean,
Yeah.
in these trying times, that is a fair amount of econ.
Indeed.
We have action. We have draw, install 2 cards, take a credit. One of those classic Asa turns where you get to do 4 things.
Mm-hmm.
Janktavist starting off with a Steelskin Scarring and a run on an open R&D. That is an unseen card being thought about. One thing that is interesting that can be like what that can signal in this deck, it doesn't seem to be the case here, but what that can signal in this deck is Ikawa Project, because you do have the ability to decline to steal Ikawa Project. If you don't want to spend those 2 credits in that 1 click.
I can't think why you would in this case. There's no actual threat here.
I agree. I think you absolutely want to right now if you can, but that is, in theory, if you see a pause on R&D, it could be that.
Yeah,
Starting the clown car on the remote.
Already, turn to server 1, using that ASA trigger, getting 4 installs in a single turn. It looks like Janktavist, other than finding this Fermenter and Mystic Mamie, is probably still looking for some econ to stabilize. We found the deuces. I was a little, yeah. So really drawing hard here. Hitting the moshing as well. Black moshing, Black Orchestra, and Steelskin Scarring. So really just trying to dig and set up quickly. I suspect their plan is to just try and get a Stargate lock on R&D and Pinhole Threading Keelings when possible. Um,
hmm I here like we are already playing the game. Already playing the game that is incredibly fun for Asa and probably a lot less fun for Hoshiko, which is this already the ganked loop? Because there's enough money to fire it on Jinsei's side. In theory,
Mhm.
this could be the ganked loop.
it
In
definitely
reality,
could
though.
be.
It isn't the highest possible value you could get from it. It would just trash a fermenter and a Mystic Miami.
Mhm.
But you have to start thinking about these things already
Mhm.
if you're Hoshiko.
Yep.
Yeah,
I
and
think that letting the remote go until you have the tech, though, is probably the call. And this
Yeah.
deck does have a decent amount of tech versus the ASA list. I mean, the hippos and the pinholes are going to be pretty decent here because the
There
deck's
are
not running a
four
whole lot of
cards.
ice.
There are four cards in this remote.
Hmm.
Amazing. This is Netrunner at its finest. This is peak performance. This is what you want out
this
of
is
any list.
this is definitely something that some people do want out of Netrunner. I can't say I'm one of them, but uh, yeah.
Thinking. I agree, Janktavist. Thinking.
Indeed.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's like you start. I think it's the one where you start going, okay, should I run it at some point just to try and diffuse it? Should
Yeah.
I just ignore it for the whole game and rely on my 3 pinhole threadings? Like, there's there's some real there's a lot to think about here as the runner in terms of how you
Mhm.
want to try and manage the strategy. Botulus, very nice card to get here. I wait a
Yep.
minute. Okay, and here comes the Keeling in server 1. So found really early,
Okay.
honestly.
And rezzed quite early. Only on 9 credits here. Janktavist so far ignoring this Keeling. Or sorry, not ignoring the Keeling. So far ignoring the remote, choosing to put a Botulus on R&D. So
Yep, and
Janktavist does need to actually discard a card here, thanks to Keeling.
I think the Dream Net makes a lot of sense. There,
Yep.
his econ's just not quite in a spot where that can get installed, and this is probably not a I'm going to run every single turn kind of game anyway. So
Yeah. Yeah,
we're,
this seems like a sit back, let your fermenters cook kind of game.
Mhm.
yeah, we're
Tranquility
seeing a
Home
train.
Grid is in server 1, so we
Yeah,
can
so
see. Oh my god, that's only 2 credits, but still, there are now 6 cards in server 1, which is honestly a. This has reached the point where I no longer find it fun, and I find it very threatening.
There's a question here. A couple of turns back, Janktavist did trash a Warraid tracker out of R&D.
Yeah.
When you pinhole,
Oh, here's a
we're
pinhole.
gonna have this answered right now. Does Warraid
Yep.
tracker work on a pinhole run?
it sure does.
It does.
Whenever the
It's
runner
just
trashes
when
one,
the runner trashes.
yep. So
And
so now we're
notably, this pinhole forces Warraid Tracker to trigger, but you don't get to trash the Warraid. So it is going to sit around there for future turns. Also, an important thing to note, Warraid Tracker is not unique. And there are 3 of them in
Mhm.
this list. So there can, in a future turn, be 2 of them in this remote.
yep.
Disgusting.
Absolutely disgusting. No, I mean, you're completely right there. Now, notably, that is one of 2 Vientiane Keelings down. In terms of ways to recur Keeling in this list, there are 3 Spin Doctors, there are 3 Restores. So, if you were hoping that trashing 1 Keeling gets you out of the woods, I have some terrible, terrible news for you.
Here we see
There can be
Jinsei
so many
actually
more.
going for a score, which I think is a really interesting line. Suggests a lot about what this could be. And Janktavist is
Yeah.
just saying, "Hey, you know what? You can score. I'm gonna get into R&D here." And they steal
I
a
oh
send a message.
oh, send a message. Yeah, I was going to say this signals to me that server 1 is probably a send a message because that's
Oh,
the
I
one
think this is
agenda you really would
actually.
want to.
I think this is a big mistake to res this Fairchild 3 here, because it's just gonna
Yeah,
get
because
hippoed right away.
Botulus Hippo. Yeah. So R&D is now once again open. Janktavist will see an unseen card. It will stay. But R&D is now a very threatening server from Jinsei's side because now a Stargate can come down and start completely disassembling the game plan.
Yeah, and Jinsei's got a really hard fork where they've got an agenda in this remote that they need to deal with. They need to make sure they can protect. They have to deal with their open R&D, and they probably have some agendas in HQ as well. As only there's 6 points on the table, but there's probably somewhere between 9 and 12 points drawn at this point. Though I will say they've played 2 sprints, which is
Yeah.
a card you don't see a ton of, but is really nice for what I'm going to call these like combo-y decks where you don't want to draw
Mhm.
your agendas right away and you have cards you really do want to draw. Sprint lets you kind of do some filter drawing in a really nice way.
Right, because a lot of times, in many ways, this is a prison deck. It doesn't have a very robust scoring plan. All of your agendas are 5/3s except for your bifurcation. So I would imagine you usually don't score out in this deck. A lot of times, your plan A is
Mhm.
get Keeling in that remote, kill the runner. But if you are that style of deck, a lot of times you don't want to run cards that say draw a card on it or draw like 3 cards, especially. But Sprint is actually pretty good because it lets you get rid of those agendas. And you do actually have a proactive plan where you want to start drawing stuff. Here's a really interesting place. Send a message, resing a 3 cost drafter on HQ, valuing
Stargate
that
coming
over the
down.
ice on the remote. There's a Stargate.
Send a message,
Stargate
Mad Dash,
finds a
that's going to
set.
be
And
Oh,
it.
that's
that's
game.
game. That is game.
Wow.
Wow. And that's the problem with running real 3 pointers, right?
Yeah. It ends real quick. Turn 6.
All it takes is one good Stargate.
Yeah. That's all
Wow,
it takes.
Janktavist finding the line there. Janktavist, this game could have gone on a long time. This could have been a knockdown, drag out fight where we eventually see the entire board get trashed by ganked and on cell, and then it ultimately comes down to Keeling ticking up for like 5 turns and finally killing you. But no, one Stargate run, one mad dash, game is over, GG. Message has been sent.
I suppose was that coming down to you think like overcommitment on the remote too early?
I think it
Possibly
was.
not respecting R&D enough. Yeah.
Yeah, I think you probably want another piece of ice to go onto R&D, and you just say, you know what, my remote is still really scary. The biggest problem with that threat is you don't have the econ to res on both places at once. So it's just a very tricky game to manage. There's the court where your econ didn't quite get going in the way I think you needed to keep
Yeah.
pace with the threats that the runner was presenting you.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Notably, that is not the end of the line. Pun, I guess, now intended for for Jinsei. Jinsei was in the upper bracket, so still has a loss to give. There's one game remaining. MJP and Tuno are still playing. Do we want to jump into that one?
Yeah, if you want to go ahead and ask if they're good to be streamed.
Yeah. Okay. It is still definitely going. We have 18 cards left in R&D. Uh, I see they are calling us stream.
Yeah, I realized that they were both fine with being streamed last round. So I'm gonna make the assumption that we can hop into the game for a moment. But
Yeah, we are good to jump in.
great.
We see a fairly advanced board state here. There is an endurance with 8 counters on it. There is a fermenter with 2 counters on it. There is an Oziev protocol in the bin. There is a server 7 with 2 overseer matrices and an urban renewal with 2 counters on it. There are only now 4 credits on Tuno's side, thanks to an economic warfare. Hard hitting is coming down. This seems a little bit more like how you draw it up if you're op.
Yeah, I mean this is definitely the op board state you are drawing for, and that HHN landing is once again a pretty nice fork. We did see MJP last time try to time it up to be on the exact same turn as an urban renewal, which maybe would be an option here, but I think there's always the threat that the runner's gonna burst forward an econ at some point. So it's
Especially with
definitely.
that fermenter, right? You know
Yeah,
that represents
exactly.
6 credits if you don't go for it this turn.
Yeah.
That is
Yes.
an available play. Could pop fermenter here and then clear 3 of the tags. I think the question is there a better play available? There very well may be. How many
Yeah.
deuces are there in Tuno's list?
Let's go take a
There
look,
are
and I will.
0 deuces in Tuno's list, so
Okay.
that is not an option here. Instead of opting for no free bunches, there
Wait,
are 2 no free lunches in the bin, so all of the no free lunches have been used and defused. So sure enough, it is pop fermenter, clear 3 tags. 1 tag is remaining. Is there a do we see a value end of the line here?
almost certainly not, right?
I
It's
would
how
love
you
it
win.
though.
It would be a real flex, but I suspect MJP is playing for the win here, and
Okay,
isn't so.
I have looked at MJP's list. There is exactly 1 end of the line, which I did not realize. You probably don't want to use that as a value card then.
Yeah.
I thought there were 2.
Nope. You could
It
spit it
is.
back though.
You could,
Yeah.
but then you have to draw it again.
It's often better in these type of corp lists to just play more copies of Gaslight than more copies of End of the Line, which is what
Yeah.
MJP did opt for here. Uh,
Now, something we should point out, there is an ice with 3 advancement counters on it on R&D. What do we think that is? Looking at the list, it could be Hortum, it could be Mausolus. I think Mausolus makes the most sense, right? That's if you're actually going to devote your wall-to-wall to putting advancement counters rather than giving you credits, I think you want that to be on something that gains end the run, rather than just something that protects itself from Turtle, which is not actually in Tuno's list.
yeah, I mean, I'll say as someone who plays a lot of wall to wall in op, like I'll advance anything just to give the runner a little bit of a scare. So like,
Oh, that's fair.
that ice could really be just about anything. But Mausolus, I would say, is probably the preferred because Mausolus becomes incredibly powerful, where you basically do have to break all 3 subroutines.
Even the gain credits one becomes very threatening because it's 3 rather than 1, if I remember correctly.
Yes, giving the corp basically all their money back, especially in a game where hard hitting news and econ matters, is a big deal.
We're gonna see what it is because endurance does have enough counters to break through this, no matter what it is. No
No
res though.
res.
That's a
Oh,
send
and
a
that's a send a
message.
message off the
Just
top.
ripped off the top. Very nice for Tuno here.
Just access the agendas. That's all you got to do.
Netrunner's easy. Just access the
Yeah.
agendas.
Now this does become a difficult turn next turn because there is an urban renewal that is about to tick down. Not the best thing necessarily to happen to you if you are Tuno. Shoot a Jahim. It's the bin.
All right, it's the final.
You have to clear this tag, right? You just have to.
You're dead either way if you. So Tuno is just going for their line, which is just find the agenda.
Wait, why are you dead either way? How does the tag come back on?
Because a Drago got shuffled back into R&D, the Urban will trash, dealing 4 damage.
Because of op, yeah. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, so yeah, and it is pointing that out. Just have to find it. Figuring out where is the agenda most likely to be. Is it in HQ? Is it in archives? Is it in R&D? Which would you run here?
I'm probably running R&D because basically that's where the agendas always go. Like they just flow up, and I think that's going to be the highest density.
You may just not have end of the line in hand, but that is a gamble to take. It's not a sure one either.
Yeah. I think the reason I think this is a really interesting. This was a very interesting turn because MJP probably didn't res so they could make sure they could res the envelopment, but they probably also want to be able to res the second piece of ice because the endurance has so many counters right now that it actually does break envelopment completely if you want it to, and then beat the next piece of ice potentially. Though,
well, and actually this turn, oh no, never mind. Nothing's been trashed this turn, so you actually would want to break envelopment completely.
Yeah, potentially. Otherwise, you're probably dealing with a double border control.
Yeah.
And the last click is a trash a Drago. It's
wait, hold on.
That means they're completely
safe. Is there a second
safe.
Drago?
Yeah.
There's no second Drago. Drago's 4 influence. And there's no way to shuffle it back right now.
Yep. Is the last
what? had to go for it, and it found it on the top of R&D. Now, the game's not over. Has to still survive if there's a way for Drago to get back into the... Oh, no. Oh, there's a tag. Right. Well, there's only one tag.
That's all you need, though,
That's
because
enough. That's
Urban is
enough
going to
because of
do
urban renewal. Yeah, that's
is
enough.
gonna do the
That's enough
4
because of
damage.
urban renewal.
Yep, exactly. So
Yeah.
so
Okay. Well,
it's the end of the
I
line.
was a little early in saying found it off of R&D. But
Yep.
there we go. Does not use the Svigator excavator for style points, unfortunately, but does win via collapsing a building and then shooting them in the face. So, Tuno, that is now its second loss, correct? If I remember, let me double check that. Yeah, that
Yes.
is now its second loss. So, Tuno is out of the cut, unfortunately. And if I refresh on this page to see, yeah, unfortunately, also dropping out, Cardboard did lose the game against Percomis this round. So that is, in this case, quite literally the end of the line. And I think in the other case, not nearly as literally the end of the line, but metaphorically, just the same. Congratulations to both Tuno and Cardboard. This was an incredibly stacked field. This is one of the most stacked fields I've ever seen in a tournament before. And they both made the top 8 of it, which is extremely impressive. Someone has to go out first, and just want to make sure that we congratulate and say, like, this was an amazing performance. Congratulations for making the top 8 in this incredibly stacked field. Congrats to both.
Indeed. I've got up on screen the results for round 2. So that was as we saw on stream, a Janktavist runner win, and then 3 corp wins with rongydoge beating Anarcho. So rongydoge and Janktavist are on the top side of the bracket. Anarcho and Jinsei are still get a second chance, as do percomis and MJP, who won their corp side matches. And it's the end of the road for Tuno and Cardboard today. But as you were saying, great runs and absolutely fantastic play throughout. So
yeah, so Janktavist and Ranji are both on the inside track to winning this event because they are sitting in the upper bracket finals. Whoever wins that will move on to the grand finals and just kind of wait while everything else shakes out, and then they'll come back and they only have to win 1 out of 2 games. So the stakes for that game are quite high. We're likely going to watch one of the lower bracket games just to see someone who is potentially about to be knocked out of contention. So we'll figure out exactly who that is. Well, the bracket is up now. Are we actually taking a break between this round and next, or are we rolling straight into it?
we're going to take a 5-minute break between rounds just to
Okay.
give the competitors some time to decompress. But, keeping everything moving, I think most people appreciate. The competitors maybe don't. I need to talk with the competitors and figure out if we're going to do a lunch break or drive through it. But
Okay,
because we
perfect.
are actually flying through the rounds right now. There's only
Yeah.
a couple left, honestly.
Okay, perfect. In that case, let's we'll take a couple minutes break, and if you were out there watching this stream, don't go far. Like, stand up, stretch, get some water, maybe grab a quick snack, but don't go far because there are going to be some very interesting games coming up. All right, welcome back to the Circuit Breaker Invitational Top Cut. Round 3 is about to begin. Round 3, we are going to watch MJP versus Jinsei. These are 2 players who were in the lower bracket, so on the verge of elimination. The winner of this game gets to continue playing games in the Circuit Breaker Invitational Top Cut. Loser of this game goes home. Goes home having accomplished extremely awesome things this weekend, but does end the run for this tournament. So we're going to see Jinsei on this ASA group once again against Hoshiko once again. We'll see if the game ends the same way the last one did. As we saw, this is a very interesting ASA group list. Hedge fund and install 3 cards in the remote is how this game starts. That already tells you a lot, right? That tells you a lot about what's potentially going on in this game plan. I am once again joined by Orbital Tangent and Yusengrin. So hello, both of you. Welcome back to the cast.
Thanks for the intro.
Yellow.
What do y'all think about this matchup? We've gotten a chance to see it in action once. Do you think that's how it typically plays out, or do you think that there are things that we saw in that matchup, that in that particular game, that we shouldn't expect from this game?
I think that it can play out that way quite a few times, but also I think that R&D was largely undefended with a focus on the remote.
Hmm.
So you might not see as many you might not see it go as quickly if R&D can get some of the defenses up here.
Yeah,
It is a
and
little
it's
tricky for this deck to defend R&D too heavily with only
mhm.
10 ice in the whole list.
Mhm.
Which
Um,
you're not used to seeing that from Asa, right? You're not usually okay, 10 ice. You expect 12, 14, something like that.
yeah,
Oh, we
modern
have a restore, straight up just reinstalling a Rashida. I don't care, it's a Rashida. What, you're gonna come in here? I have a Warhead Tracker in here. I have a Managarm Skunkworks in here. What are you gonna do about it?
I actually think this is maybe one of those cases where open deck lists matters. Oh well, an Ikoa out of
Oh, Ikola
HQ
Project.
does
That
simplify this a
helps.
bit. But I almost wonder if, as MJP, if you're okay with just running this server one. Um,
Yeah.
I think the idea is that the most of the threat, like, oh, and there's a send a message. So this game may go.
Oh
I mean,
boy.
it does mean there's no mad dash. So there's actually only, well, there's still 6 agendas left in the list. So it's
Oh
not.
man, and that hurts so much. Send a message stolen with no ice on the board. That's part
Yeah.
of the problem with only having 10 ice, right?
Oh.
Yeah, it makes it real
And
tough.
unfortunately, Jinsei is on the mulligan this game, so that probably explains a little bit of what we're seeing here.
It probably that is a very good shout out that is likely the case. It's one of the things where I'm like, when you look at the upgrades that this deck has, if there's no ice on the server, the ganked doesn't matter. So it's probably multiple Mr. Hendrixes, Warroid trackers, and Managarm. But if you don't have
Mhm.
a board, the Warroid trackers aren't actually a threat to you either. Um,
Mhm.
so it's really just like, can I deal with a Managarm Mr. Hendrick remote? So um,
Looks like we have a misclick here. We often do see these small takebacks like this because misclicking is an extraordinarily easy thing to do when you're in JNet that just doesn't happen in person. You can't misclick and say, "Oh, I clicked R&D when I meant to click HQ." You would just say, "I run HQ." So that's something we see.
yep, and these sorts of like, I didn't no information is gained by the corp at this point, and the runner has no opportunities to interact yet. It's completely like, this is the one case that's supposed to be completely clear. It's like, oh, I meant to play hedge fund and then install my thing rather than install my thing and then play a hedge fund because
Right.
I dipped below. So
I will take issue with the fact that you say that misclicking can't happen in real life. There have been times I've thrown a Nico campaign on the table when I meant to throw down a seamless.
That's a
Uh,
fumble. That's not a misclick.
all right. Well, there's a reason we're doing an alt art for seamless. Is all I'm saying.
just plug in your own work there, Orbs. I like it. I like it.
Hell yeah, you got to integrate things, you know.
Now, here's an interesting question.
Cross promote.
We see a sprint come out, gonna draw 3, gonna shuffle back 2. Um, Obviously, the first ice here went onto R&D. I was kind of
Mhm.
wondering when that came out, does that actually signal there's nothing in HQ and they're all in R&D? Or does that signal, please, 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 please think they're in R&D and they're actually just gonna get shuffled back by sprint here?
I think that's definitely a thought. I think the thing is, it's still really probably better to run HQ because if you can diffuse the upgrades in HQ, it is so much nicer for you as Hoshiko because
Mhm.
basically they don't do anything in
That's a good
if
point.
they're not installed for the most part. Um, Actually, does gank work with not installed, or is that just another crime that card is committed? Um,
I think that from it works from
It works from
R&D, right?
access.
Yeah, it just works from
Yes.
access,
oh my
except from
goodness!
obviously.
Please, designers, stop this card. Anyway,
They will
um,
never stop this card, Jeff. They will never stop it.
I really wonder as MJP if you just run this remote at some point.
What's the worst that could happen?
I mean, the worst that happens is like a triple Hendrick, and you take 2 core
Mhm.
damage.
Yeah.
Um,
I would question whether or not you need to, though. I mean, you're on 6 points. Like,
Yeah,
You
just
only really need to touch one more. So
yeah. So
Yeah,
you just
I think that's fair.
build up for your Stargate, take singles when they're free,
yeah.
Oh my god.
and you have pinhole threadings in your list because you're a 2023 Netrunner player. So
Mhm.
you'll deal with the Keeling, you'll lose some of your board, and you can survive it.
For those of
Yeah,
you
I think
counting at
that's the
home,
play
there are
right there.
8. For those of you counting at home, there are 8 cards in server 1. That is 8 out of 13 upgrades. So one of these could potentially not be an upgrade. So it could just be 7 out of 13. That is a hippo. That is threatening to get rid of the only ice on the board. Rashida does res. Rashida is going to potentially help out with that situation.
Yeah, you definitely want to get your second ice on R&D here. Even if you never intend to like we actually saw the magnet in HQ, I would expect that magnet to get put on R&D and never res for the whole game, just to turn off Hippo, which is such an important card for keeping the Anarch's econ ahead with the relatively inefficient breakers.
Yeah. I think the only case where we'd actually see that get rezzed is if there's a botulus on an important target, like the innermost
Continuing to
on
clown
R&D.
car that remote.
Yeah, but there is now a server 2. So please, but there aren't just clown cars. There are also normal servers. Completely just a classic spin doctor server. Nothing
Normally,
threatening here whatsoever.
I'll say normally I don't have to zoom out to watch a 2 remote corp, but I guess when you install enough cards in one server, it's basically like you've made a bunch of servers.
Yeah, yeah.
Sure. We'll go with that.
So it looks like there may have been agendas hiding in archives that just got shuffled back into R&D.
With the amount of drawing that just happened in that last turn, 6 cards drawn, I believe, I would be shocked if there was no agendas in archives.
Yeah.
Um,
Divert Power, seen in HQ once again. Divert Power, obviously, many of these upgrades have cheap res costs. Divert Power can take advantage of that to res something that's pretty nasty. Vientiane Keeling does get resed here at the end of turn, so that is going to be 1 card drained from MJP of MJP's choice, so it's just a Paladin Puemu.
yeah.
Picks up to 2, that represents -2 max hand size, so there are now 3 max hand size on MJP's side. If this ticks up long enough, the runner will die.
Yes.
Question is, with pinholes in this deck, how realistic is that?
It seems like it's going to require a real grind out, and I think MJP has done something very intelligent here, which is just not actually build a board state.
Here's a Divert Power.
Yeah, so this
Resing Keeling.
And this res is a fair shot for 0. And the cool thing is that when Jinsei re-reses this Keeling, it will get a new counter on it.
So that actually accelerates the Keeling threat.
It does
sure enough, there you
accelerate
go.
it, yes.
Absolutely.
So this is now max 2 hand size, which again, not threatening to kill right now, but max 2 hand size is actually a little bit annoying if you don't want to immediately play all of your cards. And sure enough, we see a discarded Hippo off of Keeling. There's obviously 1 Hippo on the board, so it's not like discarding the Hippo here means the Hippo threat is defused. There is still a Hippo out there and active, but Divert Power on Keeling just to accelerate it, that's actually a pretty cool play, because a lot of times that you see Divert Power, it's so that you can res expensive things like Chiashi, or res expensive thing, or res a Loki on a remote where no one's ever going to run. Divert Power here is purely to, well, I guess not purely, but mostly to accelerate Keeling and get a little bit of incidental value by playing Fairchild 3 or something like that.
Yep. We actually see a Spin Doctor trash out of HQ, which is a really significant outcome. We see double Warroid Tracker here, and I'm guessing that MJP is just going to let Warroid Tracker blow up their board.
Yeah.
Because
I think the only card you really care about here is the Hippo, right?
Yeah, and I think with the Fairchild 3 on R&D, you're probably not doing that. The one fun thing about this
could just
is
keep the traces too. You're on 33 credits.
You could, but like I don't even know if your Paladin Hippo and Mystic Mamie are worth 4 credits right now. But actually, MJP disagrees.
That seems to be the calculus on MJP's side. Has chosen to beat both traces.
Yeah, it's definitely not unreasonable to say, yeah, these are going to make me 8 credits over the course of the game.
Yeah. It's also kind of just the principle of the thing, right? You don't want to let the Warroid trackers do what the Warroid trackers want to do. Partially because then it actually does become a lot easier for Hippo to get trashed in a future turn. Or another important card that you end up actually installing. This is a very interesting play pattern. I've never seen this many cards in a single remote that has 0 ice on it.
That's not a different Tranquility Grid, is it? That's the same position? I'm like a
That
little
is the
bit.
same position. That was the one that was derezzed.
Okay. Oh wow, a Rashida was not
Oh,
fired.
Rashida, wow.
And an Elvigar in HQ,
Oh,
that's
that's a
it.
bifurcation out of HQ.
Oh,
Wow.
I mean, makes some sense, I think. There's just been a lot
Man.
of drawing happening, and agendas were only going one way. So,
Yeah,
uh,
that seemed like pretty bad flood to start the game. Unfortunately, I think that's the second time we saw that. Well, it wasn't exactly flood last time. It was more top of R&D flood from Jinsei the past game. Unfortunately, I don't think we quite saw the Asa deck really do what it meant to do. We saw a little bit of
hmm
it this game. We saw the 3 Mr. Hendricks here, though they never got rezzed and they never got fired. We saw a bit of the clown car remote, as it were, and the Keeling ticking up, but
it's
well played by
interesting that
NJP to defuse these threats, find the agendas, and get the W.
absolutely. It's interesting that players. It looked like we're taking this deck apart in the cut, as it was an absolute world beater during the Swiss. I don't know if that comes down to being flooded or if the cut here is a little bit more cutthroat, being with open lists and uh,
I I
having the
think
ability to study
I
your
think it's the
opponent's
open
deck.
lists.
I
I think
I
it's the
think
open lists. You know what's in the clown car.
I think once you know what the game plan of the deck is and the possibilities it has, it makes a huge difference in how you approach these things. Um,
hmm
and so you can say, you know what, I can just hold my pinholes for keeling. Nothing else I do matters because I'm not going to die to like. While there are enough, there's enough recursion to make keeling like annoying. Like you can, there will be more keelings than pinholes. It probably won't
Yeah,
win before you see enough points, and so you
yeah.
can just go. I will just save my pinholes for keeling, and then I will access centrals for singles, and that should probably be a robust game plan. But if you don't know that going in, you'll try and challenge that remote, and
Yep.
that's where you really get blown up.
Should we
Um,
switch over? Percomis and Anarchomushroom are, I would say, solidly in the mid game right now.
all right.
Yeah, Percomis and Anarcho. So this is the NBN Reality Plus versus Hoshiko Shira matchup. In many ways, the matchup of the cut, at least in terms of the most common decks in the cut at the start of it. We have a Drago on the table, just rezzed. We have a Lacosta grid in server 1, and we have 4 points on Percomis' side. That is a Bologna that was mad dashed. So, Percomis only one agenda from the win here, but Anarchomushroom threatening to set up a very taxing board state where Drago can just start landing tags. However, Pinhole threatening to defuse that. Gonna have to go through a funhouse to do it.
Yeah, so a net 3 for the corp end is going to be some endurance counters invested to go and deal with this Drago. I actually one thing, and I'll go and pull up the list for the stream in a moment. Simulation
Ooh.
reset, I don't feel like is what I normally expect to see in these
Yeah, that
Reality
that is
Plus
that is kind of
lists.
that's the recursion card that we're seeing out of Anarchomushroom's Anarchomushroom's Reality Plus. It's kind of in the restore slot or what used to be the archive memory slot. And I guess the idea is it shuffles things back and it can actually shuffle things back with volume while fixing your hand. It can do a
Yeah,
little bit of everything.
yeah, I think that tempo gain, and apologies stream, I'll have this up in just a moment, is it's a really interesting adaptation. Uh,
Yeah. Something
let me
that's
click in.
interesting to note, looking at what's in the bin for Percomis, there are 2 Stargates already in the bin. Those are all of the Stargates in the deck. Stargate is not going to be online this game. That is not how Percomis is going to win this game.
Now, against Reality Plus, you don't necessarily need the Stargates
Mhm.
because they often have such a hard time scoring. you once again play for deck out. Um, but it definitely it with the Bologna and Mad Dash, you would probably prefer to have them rather than not. So
Yeah. We do
because you're
see a
so close to
Funhouse go
winning.
down, so Endurance breaking the 2 subroutines. Obviously, you still have to take the tag from Funhouse, but breaking the 1 subroutine rather with 2 counters, and Funhouse does go down. So this remote is a lot less threatening. Once these tags are gone, it is just 3 credits, or in theory, you could let the Trace fire and then it's only 2 credits with your Hoshiko flipped.
Yeah, this is definitely a state where I would rather be the runner. Though Econ is close enough that it's not a done deal on either side, and the
Agreed.
runner has probably run out of tools, but R&D's only got 10 cards in it left, so it's definitely and with two. Well, okay, there's a simulation
Here's a
reset,
simulation
so we're
reset.
going again.
Yeah, I was about to do the Drago check, but this will do the Drago check for us. They're all in R&D, is what I'm assuming at the end of this. Anarchomushroom does have to trash at least 2 cards from HQ to make that happen. So trashing 3 cards from HQ, getting back
Only putting back
1
one
Drago and
Drago
2
and two
unseen
face
cards.
downs.
So that could be potentially there was an agenda already in there and then just wanted to cycle an agenda back into the deck.
Yeah, or I think it was probably just moving 2 agendas into R&D and hope that you draw more useful cards.
Exactly. Running archives here. There are 2 face downs, but it's going to force a Funhouse res. Can just bounce here and force
Yeah,
an
I think that.
Mushroom to spend 5.
Yeah, I think that's the idea. And now you can just have an open R&D. It's likely flooded. Oh, but it's a
No, you can't.
turnpike.
Turnpike will force percomis to lose 1 credit, and then Mushroom, they will get to trace 5 for a tag. Trace 5 to gain 2. Oh, that is a degree mill
that's
off
the
the
game.
top. Amazing.
All right.
That's how you do it, right? You have to outlast the deck and you have to rip the points.
Yep. I mean, outlasting the Drago threat is the key, and it seems like Percomis got there. So
Yeah. Well played, Percomis. We didn't see most of the game. We kind of only saw the end here, but if you're in a board state where you have a boat that has managed to survive on the board this long, and you're at 4 points versus 0, you've clearly navigated quite well. So well played, Percomis. Well played, Anarchomushroom. Unfortunately for Anarchomushroom, that is the end of the line. That they will end the tournament in 5th/6th place, which is a fantastic run. In a field like this, getting 5th/6th is an amazing finish. So extraordinary finish from Anarchomushroom, and well played, Percomis. Percomis will continue on and have a chance to win the event.
I believe the tiebreaker actually on the 5th/6 is going to be seed, so I think you're going to see Anarcho in 6th and Jinsei in 5th.
Oh, yep, that would be the case. Jinsei was the monarch of Swiss.
Yep.
Okay, and Janktavist versus Ranji looks like it is still going.
yep. Who knows for how much longer?
still
It's
going.
it's looking pretty dire for the runner here.
Yes, it is.
Runner is on 3 tags with 3 credits, and Reality Plus is sitting here with 2 pings, a Funhouse, a Turnpike, and IP block. Quite the setup here. So
and thank you TBU3K. Thank you Jonas for this is a good courtesy reminder. If you see the stream jump into a game while we are on JNet like this, we like to make sure that the tables have optimal performance. So we really only want spectators from the stream in these games. So if you're in a situation like that, do what Jonas did. Jump off and watch the game on stream because you'll get to see the game anyway. Ranji thinking. I think that makes a lot of sense. This is a tough position to be in.
okay.
Gonna gain some credits, sure gamble, an inside job into HQ.
I think this is inside jobbing to try and get the boom.
That makes sense to me. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Finds a
It's a
Drago from
Drago
HQ.
instead.
That's not quite a boom.
It's
It is a
not
1 trash
quite a
card, but it is
boom.
not a boom. And is it there? Janktavist, do you have it? Yep.
Yeah.
It's there.
Immediate
Yep.
boom. RIP. Well, Ranji is not out of the tournament. We'll be waiting for the winner of the next game, and then if Ranji wins that game, we'll be in the grand finals to fight back against Janktavist. But for now, Janktavist, with that win, moves to the grand finals. We'll have a couple games to wait, but just gets to chill, gets to watch some Netrunner, gets to relax, and that seems like a pretty good place to be right now to me.
Yeah, we're flying through this cut today as well. Let me.
Yeah, this is now 3 rounds done in 2 hours, basically, a little less.
Yep.
So props on that front.
For the stream, standings are up. So Janktavist won as the Corp, percomis won as the Runner, and MJP won as the Runner. So this is the end of the road for Anarchomushroom and Jinsei, who take 6th and 5th respectively. And then we're going to see, I believe, MJP versus percomis, and then the winner of that will be up against rongydoge, and then the winner of that will go up against Janktavist.
That's correct. So looking back at the previous rounds, there is one more runner win than there is corp wins. So clearly a runner meta.
All right. I'm going to... I'm gonna throw us over to break. But thanks everyone. Stay tuned. We should be back in around 5 minutes or so.
See y'all then. Welcome back to the 2023 Circuit Breaker Invitational Top Cut. We have the only game in town right now, the only game playing in this round of the Top Cut. It is MJP versus percomis. Percomis will be corping. MJP will be running. So the winner of this gets to face Ranji. The winner of that game gets to face Janktavist in the grand finals. Janktavist only has to win 1 out of 2 games in those grand finals. So that's the current situation. We are down to the top 4. No matter what happens in these games, everyone you see from here on out is in the top 4 of the first ever Circuit Breaker Invitational. So they've already done amazing things. We are jumping into the game here. This is going to be NBN Reality Plus versus Hoshiko Shiro.
Yep. So this is
We're
one of
starting
the matchups.
off.
We've been.
Go for it.
Oh, I was going to say this is one of the matchups we're expecting to see throughout the day, and unsurprisingly, we are here. Nothing, I think, particularly spicy. This list is running 2 restores, and I'll have that up in a moment. And we've seen MJP's Hoshiko list as well already. So this is, I would argue a battle of probably the 2 decks that have the argument for being the 2 most consistent decks in the whole event.
Agreed. Yeah, we've got the restores, we've got the Lacosta grids, and we've got the boom. That is the influence on Reality Plus' side. On MJP's side, we have seen this Hoshiko list. The influence here is 2 copies of Boat, 3 copies of Pinhole Threading, and 2 copies of Deuces Wild.
Yep. I think some interesting includes a single Wildcat Strike just to get some extra event econ. I think is quite interesting. Let me pull these
Additional
up.
Mystic Mamie value as well.
Yep. And it actually is including a twinning as part of its multi-access package, which I think is
a card we don't always see, but there is Paladin Poemu, there is Mystic Mamie. Twinning actually can get some counters, and you don't need that many counters to justify it, even if you're against a deck like Reality Plus. If you're able to get it down in the mid game, get an extra 3 accesses off of it, it probably justified its inclusion.
I'm guessing it never
absolutely.
gets installed in this matchup, but
3
credits to
But it does make a lot of sense. It is a resource, so it's really easy to get off the board when you have Drago as part of your game plan. And speaking of, here is Drago Ivanov. If you have been missing the meta for a while, Drago Ivanov, a card from Midnight Sun, 0 res asset, you get to click it to advance it. And if you have 2 advancement counters, you can use those 2 advancement counters, give the runner 1 tag, only during your turn. As you can see, it is such an important card that it is justifying the inclusion of 3 Pinhole Threadings in a lot of decks right now, this deck included. Use that Pinhole Threading,
Absolutely.
get that Drago, don't run through that ice, keep your credit totals up.
And we see actually like a really ideal turn there where you get to land the market forces as well to just drain a lot of that runner money. MJP had the pinhole threading. Oh, we see. Okay, I was going to say you really want an HHN here as percomis, but restore is also quite impactful just to get that Drago right back. With a second ice, you're probably threatening a code gate and a barrier on the remote and not giving MJP a lot of time to respond.
Yeah, and in addition, also just threatening here, I do have protection against your hippo, which will come out eventually.
Speaking
Sure
of.
enough.
And we see an endurance discarded.
So that is a Drago tag, and
Draw 2 off
Reality
the
Plus
Drago tag.
drawing 2. Looking for tag punishment potentially. Find some tag punishment, or already had it, with self-growth program. So that will add Fermenter and Hippo back to the grip. Resetting that Fermenter, that's probably the most impactful thing there. And then, Hippo costs 2 rather than 1, so you might as well throw it back to the grip rather than the Paladin Puemu.
Yes, indeed. And we're just
Deuce is also playing an important role here.
Yes.
Doing tempo forward tag removal.
Agreed.
Really keeping that credit total up.
Drago just continuing to throw these tags on MJP. At the moment, MJP not able to clear this Drago, so Drago has an easy time of doing this. Reality Plus gaining that money back from that Drago, and 1 click left to do really whatever they want to. It's whatever percomis deems the correct thing. This looks like probably install a Spin Doctor.
Yeah,
Deuce is Wild, gonna draw cards, remove that tag.
Yep, so the 2 deuces and the pinhole, that's 3 influence found already, which is pretty good.
Accessing a ping from HQ.
Then we're going to reinstall this hippo. And then
so ultimately, that self-growth did force MJP to spend 1 additional real credit.
But it also
maybe another self-growth. Oh,
the delay on the fermenters of like a very significant thing here. This fermenter would be on, I think, 6 credits instead. And we see with the snare bearers, I'm going to say infamous, in a video that they did with me, talked about liberated account as a tech card for the Reality Plus matchup.
And it's card for Reality Plus.
it's one of the only times I think you'll ever hear liberated accounts, the most non-tech of tech cards, get called a tech card.
Look at that! It techs them into paying 2 to trash liberated account. Amazing.
Yeah, that was in the meta that was. It was thought that like sports metal and rushy prison design were like the strongest corpse, and so you didn't actually need a ton of econ to make it through the game. So liberated account was there just so that you could slam it, gain 12 against Reality Plus, and deal with this Drago problem.
So this is actually fairly threatening. This is the only upgrades in this list. Let me double check and make sure I'm not saying something untrue. Yeah, the only upgrades in this list are Lacosta Grid. So what this is actually threatening to do is you res the Lacosta Grid. Now, instead of only having 1 turn to work with, the Corp is going to have 2 turns to work with, or 2 clicks to work with every single turn after giving the Drago tag. This prompts action from MJP. Gonna run in, gonna force this Funhouse res. This takes percomis down to 2 credits. Obviously, can bounce right back up to 4 after taking the tag from the Funhouse.
Yep. MJP
probably going to clear the remote and clear tags here, though.
I would think so. At least clear the Drago.
Yeah, I think you don't touch the Lacosta. That's going to live, and that is what it is. Obviously, the only legal card to install. And we also know MJP paid through the Funhouse, I believe.
Yes.
Yes. So it's cheaper than getting out their Black Orchestra that is in the heap. Black Orchestra would basically be 6, so you're only saving 1 credit. So you have to go through that Funhouse 3 times to come out even with breaking that Funhouse. So it's not something.
Yeah. Notably, this Reality Plus is on Enigma to force you to install that Black Orchestra at some point anyway, even though it's not good against Funhouse. So I would expect we'll probably see that at some point in the future, but we don't see Enigma yet, so that is not forcing an install yet. DreamNet
Percomis
comes down.
denying the free runs.
DreamNet comes down. Spin Doctor gets rezzed. Yeah, you've got to think that this is going to deny the free run here.
But percomis is only on 4 credits here, so it's not too difficult for MJP to just say, have it, right?
Yeah. Shuffling back Drago and one unseen. Another fermenter comes down.
Yeah, we're halfway through the
Person
deck.
back up
No
with that
agendas
Rashida.
no agendas are scored, so there's almost certainly multiple agendas in hand at this point.
Yeah.
But the runner is really under no obligation to go and handle them here.
Especially with Rashida having just fired. You have to think that probably means some agendas were drawn at some point. If you're MJP, are you playing for points here?
It's a little bit early to go all in on committing to mill out. Like, you can get lucky, but it's tricky because, like, you really, if you can deal with all the Dragos and you're not that, like, it's hard to know exactly how many you're through, but getting through 2 Spin Doctors does help a bit, and 1 Restore, I believe, as well, is also gone now. So there, you can start to count the number of Restores left versus your number of Pinhole Threadings left, and figure out which win condition you need to go for here. Because if the corp's not quite ahead here, so you definitely have some options to just play to stall out. If the corp is winning, that's when you more have to push for actually scoring out.
We do see a ping on archives.
Yeah.
So that is credit neutral, and then forces MJP to spend a little bit of time and a little bit of money clearing that tag. And here we see a hard-hitting news. Hedge fund credit hard-hitting news comes out. Going to spend all of that money but 1 into a trace strength of 12. 4 tags will land.
Bounces back to 3. The Deuces Wild are all gone, so MJP is just going to spend the turn clearing. I almost wonder if we're going to see a purge here from percomis just to slow down the recovery.
We see a Spin Doctor res, so that might not be the case.
Does look like that's not going to be the
just
case.
Going to draw.
I'm a little bit worried then for percomis what the plan is if MJP clicks for 8 and then throws down some more econ off of this paladin. Because we know that there's more liberated accounts. It's like click the fermenter, drop a liberated, click it twice. Is suddenly you're real scared here as percomis. So
Probably going to see some sort of install on MJP's turn. Oh, yep. Because that paladin was ticking up.
yeah, I forgot you don't even need the fermenter because of the paladin tick up, and this is just a nicer line. And all the Spin Doctors being gone is a really important, especially if MJP can find the boom. Then the Reality Plus will have no way of scoring out. So, effectively, this Reality Plus has no real way of scoring out. And this is probably the Spin Doctor getting used up here.
Yeah, looking to see if there's anything in archives. Trying to keep percomis honest.
Yeah. Spin Doctor does get used. That is the 3rd Spin Doctor used now.
Okay, a degree mill gets left. 2 degree mills are left in the bin. So as MJP, if you have the Mad Dash in hand, you don't choose to steal. You instead just go back, and that's exactly what we're seeing.
Oh, okay, Mad Dash. That's going to be game. Wow. This is why you have to run archives sometimes, folks. Occasionally, the
you
win
gotta
is
keep
just
them
sitting
honest.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's like this Reality Plus Corp is very clearly the best Corp to be playing in Swiss. It tore through Swiss for everyone, but it's really kind of like we saw it won a game last round with Janktavist against rongydoge, and it's definitely won for rongydoge earlier. But it definitely has some weaknesses with runners that know the game plan and play very carefully. And I think it is probably one of the most demanding corp decks you can play as the corp for requiring precise runner play. But it definitely it's exploitable. So
yeah. So props to MJP. Played that very well. I think needed to play that very well. but did ultimately get the W here, thanks to the Mad Dash and the 2 degree mills sitting in archives, just waiting there. So, well played, MJP. It
All
does
right. Well,
mean
Yeah,
Percomis will finish in 4th. MJP will continue
Mhm.
on to face Ranji. So that will be the next game.
yeah, and it also
I
is
do
worth
have.
shouting out. Percomis did get a pretty rough draw here, as the two of them are talking about in the chat. So the deck
Mhm.
definitely is stronger than it looked in this game, for sure. Otherwise, it wouldn't be here. So,
Very
um,
true. Very true.
yeah.
For sure, for sure. There is one thing I do have to point out, just as a piggyback off of what Pants was saying. Percomis, notably, uh, did a lot of hiding of agendas in archives during the Swiss. Um, so that archives run from MJP was really, I think, MJP saying, he can't keep getting away with this. um, it's been a very good line, as a lot of runners have not wanted to waste runs to keep the R plus honest. And if you notice that that's what they're trying to do, you do need to check that archives, and you do need to make sure that it's clear.
Yeah, I think that run was a little bit less so to keep the corp honest as it was to exploit the fact that 2 spin doctors were already removed. And so if you can
Hmm.
just remove that
For
last
sure.
one from the game, it
Yeah.
simplifies
Hmm.
your game plan as the runner immensely. Um, it's often stealing agendas against that Reality Plus list costs the runner more than it gains. Uh, uh, so this that was you know I think both players knew there were agendas around, especially with how that game was being played out by Percomis. But I don't think
Hmm.
MJP was expecting to get the win immediately there as much as they were looking to gain an
Hmm.
advantage on the board. Um,
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. Prevent shuffling back another Drago. Yeah, etc. Okay, so are we going to throw it to a quick break before we come back with Ranji versus MJP?
yes, we will.
Okay. Stay tuned, everyone out there. We have more good games of Netrunner left, so don't go anywhere. Welcome back to the Circuit Breaker Invitational Top Cut. We are in the last couple games here. There's not that many left. We have the final game of the lower bracket about to play, and then all that's left is the grand finals. So we are about to see Ranji versus MJP. Ranji's going to be corping, so this game will be Reality Plus versus Hoshiko Shiro.
Get to see it again. We get to see
A
if
matchup that we
MJ.
have not seen yet today. This is notably, there are some differences in this Reality Plus. This is on 2 booms and 1 restore as opposed to 2 restores and 1 boom.
Hmm.
That does mean it is much more likely that if you actually stick the tags, you have the punishment and you just end the game right there. That
Yeah,
is actually something that's notable.
yes.
Hmm.
You'd think on these breaks I would be like, oh, I know exactly what matchup we're streaming. I'll get the decks in, and actually, I guess I'm done because I did get both in, and then I can let the runner. I will get the round started for everyone. But yeah, this is a slightly. It's actually down a little bit of tag. It basically dropped a self growth for a boom and some of that recursion.
Hmm. Right, because we do
So,
see 2 attitude adjustments in here. We do see 2 hard hittings in here. We do see the 2 self growths, yeah. And then
yeah.
12 ice, which I don't know if 12 is the canonical number.
Yeah, we can
I see
definitely compare
11 in
that.
some other lists.
Yeah, let's see. And gotta go click around to find. I see 11, for example, in Janktavist. I see 12 in Percomises as well, and 12 in Anarchos. So it's relatively close. Um,
And MJP with the trash talk right away. Let's see if you can spend more on HHN than I did our last game. That was a game we saw on stream, at least the very end of it, where MJP spent, I think it was like 35 credits on a single HHN to try to fork Ranji. Ranji was able to
yes.
get out of it
Hmm.
thanks to a no free lunch, but
Hmm.
um, Ranji committing to not spending 35 credits on any HHNs this game, so keep that in mind.
You hate to see it. You hate to see it.
Yeah.
We're seeing
I'd say
Oh,
degree
the
mill.
Green protecting itself.
Degree mill is not that's a real defensive 5-3. Look at that.
um, we do see a twinning MK Ultra and Black Orchestra already in the bin. So MJP will be able to is still missing the paperclip, which is often the breaker you need the most in this matchup. But is
So
it pretty?
a fantastic moshing though, right? You get rid of 2 cards you want in the bin and one you were never gonna install anyway. Great
Yeah.
art. You can also look at it while it's there in archives.
All right, and we're just seeing the money sit, and now we find out what landed in server 1. It's not Rez, so it's probably not a Rashida. The question is it a Drago, and can you go for a punishment here? It is not getting Rez, so it probably is a Lacosta grid in that case.
That would make sense to me, yeah. We're gonna see a second ice go down on server 1 and an ice on R&D, so turtling up here, certainly representing I don't want you having easy access to any of my servers. You would imagine Ranji wants to get ice on archives too at some point, just to make it easier to defend against pinhole threading, which is one of the big threats when your big threat is Drago. Another moshing comes out that's going to trash Botulus, and a boat.
It's interesting. I feel like Botulus is one of your good trick cards to have in the matchup, but
Agreed.
there's the hand could have been something like pinhole threading, mad dash, and those 3 cards, which would be totally reasonable. Like that's just the moshing you have to make, and you do have to moshing because this game is like it's like this weird. It is like a almost the quintessential gear check of just like you got to get your gear fast, and if you do, you win the game. And it does sort of look like that's the way this one's going to go. With oh wait, this been a Drago the whole time, or has this been an agenda?
It looks like it's been a Drago the whole time.
It could also
Is there any chance that Ranji's trying to score out here?
Probably if he was very flooded, this is probably your out. Is just try and start scoring. So,
well, IP block rezzed on HQ finds a self growth program in HQ. That's not an agenda.
No.
Or do we see 3 more advancements? That would be wild.
It would be wild. It would be unheard of, and definitely suggesting that rongydoge is getting a bit of hit a rough draw here. Discarding a paperclip and a mad dash, MJP's in a great spot. It is in fact a Bologna.
It is a Bologna. Wow. So all eyes on a HQ right now, especially with that paperclip in the bin. I have to think.
Yeah, I mean this is
Yep,
MJP
dirty laundry
is
into
like
HQ. Let's go get it.
yeah, exactly.
Sniffing.
And just letting the Trace 3 fire because it only costs 2 to break with Hoshiko that way. Sees the self-growth program probably again, and a hippo comes down. This could open
That's
up
make
HQ.
It even easier to get into HQ. But is this just an install advance? No, it's an install and install. All right, let's not get crazy here. We scored 1 agenda, but it made back the 5 credits. Let's not get insane with this whole scoring agendas thing. It's just a phase. It's not going to stick around.
Yeah.
IP block, oftentimes we see the tech against Hippo is you never res that outermost. IP block, a pretty decent one to res because it only costs you 2, and it costs so much more to install Paperclip and break it than it does to just continue tracing through it that it's just going to continue being a small tax for a while rather than getting hippoed, you have to think. Endless Eula is a big tax, though. That is 6 all day.
MJP
goes down.
Though cleaning up, the 6 is a big tax, but the 1 credit to trashing the Drago there is big, and then also finding the Rashida is really big. It's now
that is 2 Rashidas taken care of now.
Yeah, it's now on rongydoge to try and drag MJP through this remote, but MJP is saying, no, you're gonna play my game. We're gonna Stargate R&D and go for a quick win.
Yeah. Yeah, and Rangi has gone through a lot of the easy money in this deck already. We see the 3 hedge funds already played. We see 1 Rashida used, 1 Rashida down. That's a lot of the unconditional easy money. So potentially some clicks for credits in the future here for Ranji.
Yeah. And we see MJP clearing out their tags. They pop the fermenter as well, so they're sitting at 24. They are not getting, uh, you know, hardening news really at any point.
A casual 14 credits off fermenter.
Indeed. We see another install
Advancing in
advance
server one.
advance. We know that
Yeah.
there's a Drago on the top of R&D and a Drago in archives. So maybe this is another agenda that rongydoge is just installing and saying you won't. And and MJP is now time to decide if they will. So or if he will.
Yeah, and now that the IP block, the downside of raising the IP block, since Ping did force the paperclip to come down, Hippo can now remove this. In theory, chooses not to though. But a play that's potentially open is remove this Hippo this IP block, and then if Ranji doesn't immediately have ice to throw outside, now you can actually threaten to Hippo the Eula.
Yep. So
It's
it's
a
a
degree
degree
mill.
mill. Yep.
Wow. Is Ranji just flooded? Is that what we're
Yeah.
seeing here?
It's just
Yeah.
got to be what we're seeing. Like this is just a draw where Reality Plus drew a lot of agendas. Didn't draw Drago for quite a while, and so Runner's gonna just come out ahead here.
And my kingdom for an attitude adjustment, I imagine, is what Ranji's thinking right now.
Yeah, and
Just
this
get
is
some of
actually
these out so I don't have to score them. I don't want to score these.
a really nice run from NJP. Just knows the Drago's on top, and so
Oh,
goes
here's
for
a
it.
restore though.
Stores
So
a
that
big
is going to
deal.
remove one Drago from the game. So there are now only 2 in circulation. One is currently in server 1.
Yeah, that is a notable a thing to keep track of for sure. This endless Eula has it's now +6 differential for the corp here, but things are
Mhm.
pretty vulnerable to pinhole threading here. So
Yes.
and we haven't seen I
Uh,
think a single one played yet.
And that
So
there are many reasons you usually don't let them draw off Wildcat Strike, but you absolutely can't let them draw for a pinhole off of Wildcat Strike here, right?
yeah. Oh,
Nope, I'm wrong.
Oh,
I'm wrong. That is Wildcat Strike for 4 cards. I should just say things more often so that they can be proved wrong.
Dream that
That
comes
is a
down.
dream
I
net that
have to
comes down.
assume we're getting a pinhole threading here.
Yep, here's a pinhole into HQ.
absolutely.
This is a cheap ice to get through. Hoshiko is digital, so this is only 2 credits.
Well, not because digital, but because she has one link.
Yeah. That's what I meant. On the digital side, that side has 1 link.
Yes.
Drago does go down then for a total of not that many credits. Certainly cheaper than going through Eula. And that is only 1 pinhole played, correct?
Yes, that's
So
the
there,
only
there
pinhole in
aren't
the bin.
there
So,
aren't that many ways to get Drago back. There's a couple spin doctors that are
yeah.
unaccounted for currently,
We
and
do
the
see
one restore has been played.
an attitude adjustment to get a Bologna and degree mill out of HQ back into R&D.
That's you gotta love that if you're Ranji.
Yeah. I will say I think this is over, but for the final song kind of thing. Like I just don't see how rongydoge probably gets a win here. Uh, the runner just has too much money, and he was not able to disrupt in the early tempo. And so even though there's this endless Eula, the 2 pinholes mean it's never going to fail to get the Dragos. There's not that many
Yeah,
spin doctors left. It is pretty dire for the corp here.
and there's only 10 cards left in R&D. Like
Yeah.
you don't necessarily even you can just sit back, hold on to your pinholes, defuse Dragos as they come down, and you don't really need to do anything else. You just wait for the corp to lose.
Yep. Drago and the face down get shuffled back. We see the self growth programs are all discarded. There's a market forces that was discarded, and a boom has been discarded. It is, I think those are all cards you want to use to close out the game, but they do nothing on this sort of board state. So I think it's pretty reasonable to throw them away.
Here's Enigma that does at least force Black Orchestra out of the bin. That's 2 real credits, but Enigma immediately goes down thanks to Hippo. good one to take down because that does force 3 credits every single time as opposed to ping, which is only 1.
Yep.
That is a ping of Acosta Grid, a hard-hitting news. The ping hits the bin.
Oh, Turnpike
Turnpike
on
on
HQ
HQ.
is really nice here for
Yeah.
Ian.
Yeah, MJP does not have any extra MU, so MK Ultra has to trash a Black Orchestra to come down. Obviously, that's
Yep.
not as painful as it would normally be because you do at least have Paladin Poemu, which Black Orchestra costs at most 2 to reinstall.
Yep.
Oranji just has to sit here and click for credits, now up to 3.
Yeah, I mean,
Okay,
as much as I'm saying it's doomed, the runners credit pool is starting to dwindle. Now, the Stargate lock on R&D is going to make it pretty tough from here. But
yeah, there's just no answer to Stargate at the moment. There's just not enough money. And that honestly is, I have to assume, the reason that Ping was the choice off of Stargate was that's one of the few ice that you can actually res in the next couple turns to relevantly drain a couple extra of my credits. It was
it's
just a
also
Lacosta Grid in server 1, so Lacosta Grid does go down.
yeah,
Oh, and just to keep up on that money, that Liberated comes down.
yeah. That ping hitting the Lacosta instead of a Draco or a Rashida is actually very nice for
Oh, here's a Bologna.
yeah.
Funhouse gets
Actually,
trash, so that Mad Dash not in hand then, right?
well, Mad Dash could be in
Or
hand,
second
but
Spin Doctor.
there's a threat of the third Spin Doctor being in the remote in server
Yeah.
1. It actually is. It's either a Spin Doctor or a Drago, I think.
Or an agenda. Or yeah, or an agenda in theory, but you have to think it wouldn't want to be there.
I believe someone was asking in chat. There is a Mad Dash in the bin. I believe there's a second Mad Dash in the list, though. There is.
Yes, MJP is on 2 Mad Dashes. So Mad Dash is still very much a relevant threat. On 2 Mad Dash is a bit of an interesting call. I think it's maybe a bit of a concession to you don't always get the Mad Dash when you need it. Sometimes against decks like Reality Plus, you really want to land a Mad Dash. So sometimes you find a Degree Mill on the top of R&D, and you have to be able to pull back and Mad Dash it early in the game.
Yeah.
So this is going to get through server 1. DreamNet's going to draw some cards, find a Drago, trash the Drago.
Yep. There's at most only one more. I guess there could, in theory, be 2 more Dragos relevant to the game if the final Spin Doctor shuffles back too, but it seems fairly unlikely. There's no Spin Doctor now, so Mad Dash in hand is going to win the
Mad
game.
Dash, that's it. GG. Still have enough.
I think technically.
Careful. There's an enigma. Could be Spin Doctor in server 1. This is the classic. Are you sure?
I think technically it might have been better to leave an agenda on the top of R&D and go through it with the ping, but it is entirely irrelevant as MJP scoops up a well-fought win.
Well played, MJP. Yeah, found the lines in this game. I think controlled it from start to finish quite well.
Yeah. Hey, you know what? This is probably the most points we'll see in a Reality Plus score area all day. So congrats to rongydoge for that. And congrats to MJP. Rongydoge finishes in 4th. And third. Excuse me. And then third. MJP and Janktavist will come up for the finals.
Yeah. Are we taking a quick break between now and the finals?
Yeah, we'll take another 5-minute break. But we're 2.5 hours from when we started, and we are flying through this event. So, but yeah, we'll take a 5-minute break.
Welcome back to the top cut of the Circuit Breaker Invitational, or I guess I should say the grand finals of the Circuit Breaker Invitational. We are, unfortunately, we have to make an announcement real quick. I'm going to hand that over to the tournament organizer. So, Yusengrid, do you want to take this away?
Yeah. Give us. So, Janktavist, when looking at their deck list before this last round, noticed there was discrepancy between the list they've been playing the entire tournament and the list that we have been sharing as their final deck list. It was off by 1 card. A overclock was taken out and a dream note was placed in. According to organized play policies, the remediation for that, if it's in between games, is to give the player who was playing under an incorrect deck list to take a game loss and then randomize sides for their next match. That is what we did here. So Janktavist lost game 1 of the finals, and we're going to proceed to game 2 of the finals, and sides are randomized. Janktavist will be corping for this final game.
No matter what, this is going to be a 1-game grand finals.
Yeah. But it's still a exciting match, and this is an untimed finals between MJP and Janktavist. We will get to see Reality Plus versus Hoshiko once again.
I would like to make an impassioned plea here on behalf of Orbital Tangent. Please, 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 please check your deck lists. Make sure they are correct. We don't like situations like this. It's always a shame when it happens, especially in a grand final situation. It is, it's not unavoidable. You can in fact avoid it. It's unfortunate when it happens at a point like this, and I'm sure Janktavist is kicking himself right now, saying, if I had just written the correct thing in my deck list, that was the deck I'd been playing this entire time, I would have 2 games to spare. I would have a game to spare here rather than having to win here. So this does put us in the position of seeing Reality Plus versus Hoshiko Shiro for all the marbles.
Yes, indeed. Deck lists are up on the stream. We're still on Mike's Hoshiko list. This is several games in a row now. Once again, we're seeing Janktavist on a 2-boom, 1-restore version of Reality Plus.
Is this the same Reality Plus that Ranji was just playing?
Let me check. I definitely went to. Okay, this is definitely Janktavist's. There's like some.
Oh, it must be different. There's 1 fewer ice.
There's 1 fewer ice. Yes, 1 fewer ice and 1 extra attitude adjustment. Is basically the sum of differences here. And we see an early turn 2 Drago behind an ice with only a fermenter on the board. We see a moshing. We're going to see if this hits a paperclip. It does. That's a huge point of the game here. Botulus comes down.
Actually, I think the difference actually, there's 1 less attitude adjustment and 1 less ice, and there are 2 predictive planograms.
Oh, that's a really good shout. Oh, wow, it's an endless Eula.
Endless Eula! Well, Botulus will save you 1 credit here.
Yep, and then you can spend 5, trash the Drago, and try and make this work. But this is definitely a tough spot.
Yeah, if you spend 6 here ultimately to trash the Drago, then you end on not very many credits. The option that MJP is going for is, I'll find my pinhole, thanks very much. Or potentially just spend a few turns where you take a tag, a couple things happen, you build up some counters on Botulus, and eventually it's the point where you only have to spend 3 to trash the Strago instead of spending 6. We are going to go ahead and see.
Keeping those credits up against this deck, as we've seen, is a very real thing. So bouncing off that Eula is not a bad move at all.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you don't want to open yourself up for an early HHN, especially if you already have. Pinhole might have already been in hand, is what we might be seeing here.
Oh,
or potentially drawn off of that Deuce's Wild.
There you go.
And if you're MJP, you're playing quite a few draw cards. You have the Deuces to give you additional draw power in the deck, so it's easier for you to find your pinholes, which are really key cards in this matchup. As we saw in the previous game, they are what let you get rid of Drago in a much easier way. And that really is the board state right now, right? This is the board state. There's a Drago, there's a piece of ice protecting Drago, and that's it. That's basically the entire board state right now.
Yep.
And then on the runner side, there are fermenters ticking down. That's a lot of money.
All right, so Deuce's Wild will clear this tag. There's a lot of money on the fermenters. you probably don't want to purge here as Janktavist, but it's definitely looking a little tempting when you're like, well, I'm swiping away like 16 credits of value plus another 3 botulus counters.
Mm-hmm. Effectively 19 credits of value there. You can put a
Yeah.
very clear monetary value on these botulus counters.
If you don't clear here, it looks really good for MJP to honestly crack the larger fermenter and use all of the botulus counters to go get that Drago.
Yeah,
Yeah.
choosing to spend that turn getting a Drago tag and using market forces, so choosing to money up a little
Yep,
bit, it looks like.
that's what we're
And
seeing.
we even have a dirty laundry to go through this endless Eula. So gonna pay 2 real credits, gonna pay 1 real credit to trash Drago, and get a gain 5, clear this tag. Maybe clear this tag. Gonna run after the spin doctor, forcing the spin doctor to do something right now. I wouldn't be surprised to see. Oh, it's actually 2 face downs,
Yeah.
not the Dragos.
Once again, I think we're seeing a flooded reality plus, which, you know, with a 44 card deck, it's you don't need that. Like the agenda variants can just roll against you quite a bit. It definitely seems like a bit of what we're seeing today. So um, Janktavist installing and taking a deep think on what they're going to do here, putting another ice on server 2.
Yeah, that makes sense. This if you force runs through Eula reasonably often, or at least force the threat of having to run through Eula reasonably often, Botulus doesn't have enough time to tick up to actually really save you a bunch of money. Now that is going to be another spin doctor. Shuffling back the 2 Dragos this time, so they are back in the deck. Representing that threat. Do you think this is potentially a Rashida here in server 2?
Maybe it's the Lacostas, because it hasn't
Could
been
easily be the
rezzed.
Lacosta.
It could also be a spin doctor, but I think you would probably, instead of clicking to draw, you would be playing the spin doctor here. Or resing the
I
spin
agree,
doctor,
yeah.
excuse me.
And given that it wasn't res this turn, I have to think Rashida loses some likelihood. Um, yeah, so very likely that Lacosta. Janktavist thinking this over. Only on 5 credits. So definitely losing the economic war so far. MJP just staying so far up on money. Playing these sure gambles, playing these dirty laundries, not spending through endless Eula by playing these pinhole threadings. Another dirty laundry comes out, and then there's a fermenter with 10 credits on it, effectively 12, and another one comes down. This is just we're really seeing the power of fermenter this weekend. It is kind of the tournament of fermenter in many ways. The red orb coming into its own.
Yeah, it really is. Gains credits twice as fast, but only one-time use.
And as we've seen against many corps, they can't really afford to take the time to purge it, so it can just build up to unreasonable amounts of money.
Yeah.
Funhouse, accessed from HQ. Hippo comes down, so Hippo certainly threatening this turnpike or any other outermost ice that is a better target for it. And that's a
I hear.
purge. That's a purge
Yep,
from
that's a
Janktavist.
purge. It seems very rough to do. I imagine Janktavist is not happy to be purging here, but it seems like maybe your only way of making stuff happen. And now the Rashida gets res.
Okay,
So just
Rashida.
sitting on that Rashida for a whole turn saying, no, I need to purge so that our money is somewhat close. Rather than going for maximum tempo at all points in time.
Yeah.
I also, yeah, someone was shouting out in chat, like, if that one market force that got played was instead a self-growth program, we're probably looking at a very different game where the
Agreed.
fermenter money would be much lower.
Yeah, I think that's a very good call out. Potentially even forestalls the purge by like 3-4 turns at that point.
Yeah, no, it could even just be the game would be over already potentially. Like that, MJP made a lot of money off fermenters already,
Yeah.
and the threat of them has been pretty significant.
The third dirty laundry, I believe, comes out.
Yep, Ping gets rezzed. It's actually it's a very nice credit exchange for Janktavist here, where basically this gets rezzed for effectively free, and it's going to cost the runner 4 or 5 credits to get through, and then they still have to go and clear the tag. So
Yeah, and Botulus is only going to save the 1 credit on Endless Eula, so this is not a cheap run. But it is going to take down a Drago, so not a cheap run, but probably worth it, especially with the rebate from
Sure.
Dirty Laundry. So gonna end the turn on 10 credits, plus potentially clicking up for some, who knows? But if 10 is the starting point if this tag is gonna go down.
Yep,
Yep, tag
and
does
getting
to
the
go down, and 13 credits at the end of turn.
all right, we're gonna restore and just advance the Drago, gain 2
Yep.
credits, land the tag. MJP got to go back in, and running through this endless Eula over and over is expensive. So MJP's gonna say,
So
no,
why
let's
do it? Just pinhole instead.
exactly. I think as Janktavist, you're hoping for a fun house here, and that's probably about it. I don't think this Enigma is going to do
Okay, an
enough for you.
Enigma. Enigma, Black Orchestra, it does at least force a 6 credit investment with this Black Orchestra.
Yep.
But then it gets
What?
hippoed immediately.
Yeah, and I think we probably see a fermenter pop for 12,
Yep.
and clearing a tag, and you're back in the safe
Or at
range as
least one for
MJP.
6, right?
I'm sorry,
Potentially
it's for
just for
6. You're
6.
right. It's not that egregious. Yes. Man, that would be wild if fermenter was 4.
Oh my god, that would be broken. That'd be
Um,
wild. A liberated
um,
accounts comes down. The tech for this matchup.
yes.
Mhm.
Another Rashida makes it through. That's actually quite
That's
notable
really
here.
good for Janktavist, you have to think.
Yeah, I
Actually getting
think
to fire all of these Rashidas.
you wouldn't mind Dracoing and self-growthing a fermenter and a paperclip, probably.
Yeah, yeah, that actually seems pretty good to me.
We have finally reached credit parity, at
Yeah.
least for now.
Yeah, and
For
that
now.
makes a huge difference. That getting up to 15 here for Janktavist really actually puts a different sort of pressure on them or on
Yeah,
MJP here.
waiting to use those hedge funds. They were just sitting in hand, never able to spend the time at the credit
Notably,
totals.
nothing scored.
Yep. Yeah,
Yep.
18 cards left in R&D, so that the mill threat is not quite live yet. There is
Mhm.
one Drago in the remove from game area. There is one restore out of one used, and there is also a Drago in the bin. So there are still, and there are 2 spin doctors that are used. So there is still 1 spin doctor left and 1 Drago left naturally. There are still threats to get Dragos on the board, and there are 2 pinhole threadings in the bin. So in theory, it is still possible for Janktavist to stick a Drago that can't be pinholed.
Yep. So we're actually shuffling back a restore and probably a face down, I suspect.
Oh yeah, the
Because you're
restore hover. I see. Yeah.
um,
That will be the last spin doctor out of the game.
and the market forces.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, all spin doctors
Okay.
gone. So we're in put up or shut up time for the corp here.
All my spin doctors gone.
But 2 pinhole threadings are also down. So it's, this is getting to a really tense moment in the game. Double icing every single server. Glacier Reality Plus, here we are.
Oh, Hippo is a hell of a card, isn't it?
It really is. And sitting on now 12 credits on that one for Mentor for real this time.
Yeah, that's a lot of money. La Costa Grid does get res, so this certainly signals Drago here in server 2. Gonna res, gonna advance, that's a tag.
Are we going to get double
So,
punishments here? We're going to see a market
okay, so
forces
market
and the
forces and
self
self-growth.
growth.
Oh, and self-growth gets the
Oof.
fermenter with 6 counters on it, potentially punishing not popping it on 5. Or on
Yeah,
6 there, rather.
for sure. I think MJP can probably make this work, but they're going to open themselves up to an HHN on most of their lines here. Just
Yeah,
having
yeah,
to,
because the paperclip has to come back down to run this remote. And yes, MJP has 23 credits now. It still costs you 6 to get through Eula. You're gonna dip a little bit lower than you want to here.
for sure. Don't think you can afford to trash this Lacosta grid here, because
I
when you
don't
clear
think
the
so.
last tag, you'll now hit credit parity. Janktavist can install in server 2, click for a credit, hard hitting news. Oh, actually, no, with the link and the
Pretty adjustment.
credit gain, Maybe not, but attitude
Well, attitude
adjustment,
adjustment gains money, and
it
predictive
certainly does
planogram can
here.
gain money too. Hard-hitting
And
news
then
comes out. This
Trace
isn't quite a hard-hitting news
18.
for 30, but it is for a Trace 18. That's a lot.
Yep. MJP takes the turn off. I think as Janktavist, you really wanted to have a card that you could have landed the remote, but you needed the money. But you're probably happier if you can go and slam something in server 2 here, because it is
Yes.
now much harder for MJP to get through.
Yeah, we have now reached the state that Janktavist really wants to be in. MJP wisely clearing off almost all of that liberated, respecting the Drago threat here. Just choosing to bounce back up in money. Okay, and that is an advance and 2 credits. So that is threatening Boom next turn, right? Because the Riposta
Yes,
advancement
it is
advanced
threatening
Boom.
Boom. I think it's more likely threatening Bologna, just based on the board state is my guess.
I agree with you, but in theory, you may have to respect it as a kill threat.
Yeah, I think you have to advance it so that the runner goes and runs it. Because if you leave it just for the Bologna scoring pattern, it means the runner doesn't have to deal with this. And your whole goal is to try and reopen this credit differential by running them through
Yeah.
the EULA. We're really seeing Mike's triple liberated
Oh,
account
we have a mad
payoff
dash.
big.
So really respecting the play that you're suggesting here, that this is a Bologna. Mad
Yeah.
dash comes out, gonna spend all of this money to get through Eula and Ping. That is a
And
Bologna.
it is the
And it
That
Bologna.
is
is.
4 points. So any any degree mill now is game. Any degree mill now is you are the circuit breaker. Bologna you still have to work a
Indeed.
little harder for.
People are asking, there's one Drago in the bin, one Drago removed from the game. We know there's one Restore in the deck and one Drago still floating somewhere in Janktavist's general
Oh,
area.
and here's the Rashida. Rashida with a counter. That's a flex.
Yeah, I mean this is looking really good for MJP to go
Restore.
clean up, but we'll see. Restore for the Drago here.
So this is the last Drago of the game. All of the recursion is gone. At least all of the recursion that can get Drago. There are 3 Dragos accounted for between the remove from game area and play. There are 3 spin doctors used, and that is the last usage of Restore possible this game.
And very importantly, MJP has one pinhole still somewhere between their grip and stack here.
Yep.
So,
and there aren't that many cards left in the stack. So here comes the pinhole. It's going on R&D. That's gonna Turnpike is the outermost. So that's an annoying one, actually.
it definitely is. That's going to give Janktavist some credits back and give MJP a tag. I don't think MJP can afford to deal with trying to break that Trace 5, especially because they have 0 link on this side of Hoshiko.
Yeah. Yeah, so sure enough, that is going to be
Ooh,
another Turnpike. Okay. That's not the worst case scenario, right? Well,
No. I think a
pretty bad,
Funhouse would be
but-
much worse here.
Since the Black Orchestra is on the table, Enigma would not be the worst case.
Yeah.
But that is the Drago. The Drago does go down. MJP gets to end the turn on 10 credits after clearing the tag. That might just be it, right? I don't know if the credit differential is here. I don't think Janktavist has the ability to HHN and end the game here.
Yeah, it is quite tricky for Janktavist here. I think you would need to get one more econ card going. There's maybe a world where you can try and score out, which is what this advancement in server 2 is threatening, but this is literally only an agenda, so MJP can grab some money and seal the deal on this one.
Yeah, this feels like it has to be over. Now, if this is a Bologna, MJP does have to have enough money to get it, or doesn't, because Janktavist scores this and gets to 3 points and has to score 2 more agendas.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And there's maybe not enough turns left. As by turns left, we of course mean cards left in R&D.
Is it even possible, actually? Are there enough turns left to score out if you're Janktavist?
You need 2 turns per agenda, so I don't think so.
Yeah, I think this game's over then. MJP
So
can just sit back and
there's
click for credits, I
there
think.
is still an. I mean, uh, is there some way you can do it more aggressively? I don't think so, because you're only gaining one click from the La Costa grid
Yeah,
every
and
turn.
unfortunately, right, yeah, the issue is you can't install here, so you actually lose one of those additional clicks from La Costa since you don't get to take advantage of it next turn.
Let's see. If you install advance next turn,
Yeah, MJP's just clicking for credits. I think MJP's mathed it out.
yeah, quite probably. I'm like trying to think. Can you? Is there some way that you can leverage the Like if you install advance, then you can. Yeah, no, you're. No, I think. Do you have exactly enough time?
I
Now I'm
think you're
questioning
one click
myself.
short because you end at
Yeah.
4 advancements
Yes, I
rather
think
than
that's
5.
right. I think that's right. I think
I
Mike
I
can.
think this is over. Yeah, yeah, MJP just continuing to click for credits. Oh, gonna run the remote here, potentially force Janktavist to spend money. Yeah, Funhouse. Funhouse does give a tag. Reality Plus goes back up to 4.
Yeah. So
Jags.
yeah, as we talked about, MJP doesn't actually need to run here, but this saves us all an extra 2 minutes or something. So and it's always more fun to
Yeah.
win by getting 7 points in your score area than it is to
Do you want to access?
access.
Are you sure?
I believe so.
Uh, and there we
And
have
that's
it.
it.
That is it. GG MJP, the circuit breaker. Oh, wow. What a hard fought tournament. What a hard fought game. Magnificently played here.
Well done.
Well done.
Orbs, I
MJP
believe.
displaying those skills in taking apart those Reality Plus decks had to do a run of 3 back to back to back to become the circuit breaker. So, hell of a run there.
All right. Should we see if they want to come on for an interview? Do you have any? Actually, should we throw up the thank you message one more time while we're getting that set up to our donors that helped us ship out prizes and stuff for this event?
Absolutely. Let's go ahead and do that. Um, before you put it up on screen, let me just explain to unless are we out on mic there, Jeff?
I'll go
I
reach
think we're
out to
still
Mike
up.
and get that set up.
Yeah, go for it, Orbs.
Oh, okay, excellent. So yeah, everybody, just to let you know that these are the people that decided to go above and beyond. We switched the ticketing structure of the Circuit Breaker Invitational to be a pay what you want ticketing structure instead of charging a blanket $10. We figured it was more in the spirit of the event. We are not trying to make money off of this thing. The $10 was to cover shipping costs. But these donors, after we switched to a donation structure, they decided to go above and beyond, paying beyond the suggested $10 and helping us out with those pricing and shipping costs. So we really do appreciate it. And I just want to run down the list. I'll just do handles this time, but a very hearty thank you to Redino987, Limes, Polly G, Mr. Pell, Radiant, Dormino, Magapollo, Ben Hamill, O'Doul, Shorty, Isaru, uh, Tantake, and Cardboard. Thank you very much for your additional donations. That really helps out a lot, really helps us keep doing these events. We love doing it for this community. Obviously, we love the community, we love the game, and really appreciate all of your support at whatever level you give. Um, a hearty thanks to anybody that did do the $10 or anything, including just coming to the event and having fun. No shade on anybody that took the free ticket opportunity as well. So thank you very much. We love all of you, and we're hopefully going to have the very first circuit breaker on to give us their thoughts in just a moment here.
Yeah, with it looks like that is going to be the case. MJP will be joining us shortly, but I think it's worth pointing that out. The very first person to ever hold this title in Netrunner history, the first circuit breaker of all time. So congratulations to MJP, a quite literally historic accomplishment. And here we are. We are joined by MJP. Congratulations, MJP. What a win. What a tournament.
Hi, yeah, thank you. That was a big fun day. A lot of R plus at the end there.
Yeah.
That was the first thing I was going to ask you about. How did it feel playing R plus that many times in a row?
It was a lot, but it was kind of just the same as UK Nats because the cut there was a pile of R plus, and the run to the final was like playing as it and then against it repeatedly. So sort of nostalgic.
Makes perfect sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, on that note, I guess I'm curious with talking about matchups and matchups that were common and matchups that you saw a lot and matchups that you've seen a lot recently. What were you expecting going into this tournament? What were you trying to prepare your decks and prepare your play well to face?
I think what turned up was about what was almost what was expected. When we talked about it before, we sort of expected R plus to be the number one most played corp, at least sort of towards the cut, and I think it was the number one.
Yeah,
And sports is
there
sort
were
of
15. Yeah.
okay, and sports is sort of like the default fallback in the meta, so we expected a lot of that. I thought there'd be more Agam Fusion, but then sort of it didn't really. It doesn't surprise me a ton. Kind of like I thought there would be more woo, but then when we saw how little it was, it's like, yeah, fair enough. That deck's really hard to play. The Agam Fusion deck I've only played 2 or 3 times, and I've made some like every time I played it, someone from Snare Bears spectated and then DM'd me afterwards telling me all the things that I did wrong. Just like, yeah, okay, fine. I need to practice that a lot. So I guess that's sort of where everyone's at. But yeah, apart from that, I think this was sort of about what was expected. Run aside, there's a lot of Hoshiko. I think if Agam Fusion hadn't turned up, we'd probably have seen more. So if the Agam Fusion deck wasn't known, maybe there'd have been more 419. But with it known, I think everyone sort of expected Hoshiko to be the place to be.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That makes sense.
I'm really curious because we saw you just take down 3 Reality Pluses back to back to back, if I'm remembering correctly. It seemed like in basically all of those games, like it was over by turn 3 because you just hit your econ. Do you feel like the matchup is like, obviously the matchup is not 100% Hoshiko favored. What do you feel like those were particularly lucky draws, or is that more what you generally see?
I think it definitely in like at least one of them. I think the corp draw was just horrible, but I think that was sort of above average for that deck. It's sort of less the econ because you play a lot of econ. It's seeing the fermenters specifically, which are really resilient to self growth. And in all of them, I found my first pinhole sort of at the right time. And then after that, like if you can get over those steps, I think it's a pretty decent matchup for Hoshiko. I think those were sort of mostly representative, but I definitely was a bit lucky in sort of the first, 3 or 4 turns in all those to be in a position to play those games.
Yeah, obviously there's a lot of small decisions that go into building these decks. That was one that I wanted to dig into. Is the Deuces Wild partially to put you in position to have the first pinhole when you want it? Like we saw some decks on some number of no free lunch as their remaining influence. You were on Deuces Wild. I guess what was behind that choice?
Yeah, I mean, I think Juice's Wild is just more in the Reality Plus matchup specifically. I think for Hoshiko, Juice's Wild is a bit more proactively useful because for say 419, you have so many ways to get into the remote with inside jobs and boomerangs and diversions and stuff that you can afford to sit on a no free lunch, force your opponent to show you the Drago, and then get into remote and deal with it. Whereas I think Hoshiko, if you try and play in the same way and just sit on a no free lunch, and then they Drago you, if you don't then have pinhole in hand as well, you just sort of fall over because you're then being told like, okay, break this enigma. Everyone knows that that's impossible as Anarch. It costs too much money.
Yeah.
So I think
we saw you hippo so many enigmas throughout those games.
I mean,
was that
all
the
of those
most
that was just
threatening ice?
well, not really. Like I would the sort of thing I'd much rather have hippoed was fun houses, but there was never a fun house in like a critical location. And in all of them, at least in some, I thought about doing just trying to tear down the remote,
Mm.
like hippo the ice one at a time. But sort of by the time the hippos were up, in every case it was like, well, I'm in control of the game. I just need an open central so I can play laundries and play pinholes. And if you're at the point of the game where you're just clicking for credits and holding onto a pinhole, it's nice to know, like, okay, archives cost me 0 credits.
Yeah, true.
But no, I would have rather have like the most threatening ice is definitely fun house. It's just but yeah, I think so. I think the juices are quite nice for like in that if you're in that stage of the game where you have to just let the Drago ride for a while and just go like, okay, I'll reinstall this fermenter repeatedly. It lets you draw through your deck without losing tempo clearing the tags, and otherwise it helps you find the pinholes, as you say.
Yeah. Obviously, we
And-
saw Hoshiko a lot at the end there. Or sorry, did you have another question here, Jeff? I think I cut
I
off.
think you're doing a smoother transition, so you can finish. I think we're going the same
Yeah,
way.
we
though.
saw Hoshiko a bunch at the end there, but I did want to make sure we talked about your corp deck because we did see it in action earlier. I think with one of the highlight plays for me, like a hard hitting news for 30 some odd credits. uh, w- what was I guess what went into the decision making for this particular? Because like there are many different ways you can go with. What went into this particular op list for this particular tournament?
I really like this. Like I'd said a couple of times to like on Slack that like I think if I was just 100% trying to optimize, I probably would have brought R+. Despite how it looked in those last couple of games, I think it was probably like the place to be. But I've been playing that Obelisk for a few weeks. Got deck of the week on Netrunner DB a couple of weeks ago after I played it at the Edinburgh tournament. I just find it very fun to play. I think there's a lot of engaging decisions, and I think it has quite good matchups apart from against 419, which was the match I lost in the cut to rongydoge 419, just sort of picking it to pieces and sitting on far too much money to ever do anything about. So I think it's not quite as good as probably Ag Infusion if you're good at it, and Reality Plus if just generally. But like I just think it's slightly more interesting to play for me at the moment, and is good enough with that.
Yeah. Clearly good enough to win. Clearly good enough to win the tournament. So I did want to ask a few questions about some of the new cards because obviously we're excited to talk about some of the new cards that are in the meta that make this particular tournament different from any big like really high profile tournaments that have come in the recent in the recent past. I see some copies of Gaslight in here. I see a couple copies or like one copy of End of the Line. Those are new cards.
Yeah.
How did you feel about the new cards and how what they do to this particular archetype?
Oh, and I think this archetype like just doesn't exist without those two pieces. Like End of the Line is obviously like, but because there's been like Wayland asset spam decks around for a while that keep trying to urban renewal and then hard hitting. But it's been a long time since that plan really made any sense because you always get into the situation where like if there's one urban renewal and there's aren't like two at the same time or some magic ways to do extra damage, just like it doesn't work. It doesn't do anything. The runner can just take 4 damage and go, okay, I'm not going to run. That's fine. And these new pieces, like the Gaslight for the consistency to say like you probably have End of the Line or you probably have access to End of the Line. And the End of the Line to just do the sort of like the coup de grace 3 extra damage when you 4 extra damage that you're always threatening to do when an urban renewal pops with Drago in the deck is like, I think it ties the archetype back together and makes it playable in a way it hasn't really been since 2019 when we had sort of Judge doing the same thing with SIE.
Yeah, makes sense. Yeah.
And Gaslight, I think, is just a very, very sick card. Like, it seems to go into loads of different archetypes, and it's not like the busted piece in any of them, but it just makes everything flow together better and gives you more options all the time, which is very fun.
Yeah, and we kind of see it's a little bit of the glue. We've got 3 of them here. Yeah.
Yeah.
I have to ask. Obviously, I mentioned the one that we saw on stream with like a super high credit value hard hitting news to fork the runner. I have to ask though, on the weekend, were there any really really memorable plays that stick out to you as, man, I'm happy that I pulled that play off this weekend?
I mean, I think that one, even though I lost that game, I think that was the funniest moment. There was a game in the lower bracket final. Or I played in the lower bracket final where I stargated and saw Rashida and a Bellona, trashed the Rashida, left the Bellona, and I'm still not sure if it was the right thing to do or not. I need to think about it for like another couple of hours to decide if it was good player or if it was just very, very stupid. But it was definitely one of the two. That's very memorable.
I think if that was the one, if that was on stream, I think I thought it was a good play, but I'm maybe not the best judge for that stuff.
I think so. I thought so at the time, but like, who knows?
I mean, like the corp was never going to score out there, so it's a little irrelevant.
Yeah.
I don't know. It was fun at some point yesterday, just chasing a thimble rig around Ag Infusion's board with a Botulus on it. That was an interesting game.
Yeah, I do have to ask. So, as you pointed out, like Stargate, oftentimes intensive decision making there. This uplist, obviously, any deck that can tutor things, oftentimes a lot of decision points in those lists. So you're playing two decks that you're not shying away from decks that make you think. And I think some players are a little hesitant to play, especially in long tournaments and competitive fields, decks that make them think a lot. And I have to ask, as someone who clearly didn't shy away from that, what tips do you have for people who want to kind of expand out and maybe play something other than the sports or the list that they're super comfortable with and try something new in a high stakes environment like this?
Well, I think so. First, I think like it is a real concern. Like I think you like there's no way, even if I thought it was the best matchup, that I would have played that Oblast and World Tree Wu in the same event. I think that's too much brain power, and I think it's perfectly reasonable to pick like if you're playing one deck like that you find very complicated or sort of that is really tiring, to pick another deck that you're much more comfortable with. So I think that's sort of if you're looking for a way to say like, oh, I'm interested in this deck and I sort of want to play it in, I don't know, this nationals or whatever, but it's a bit too much. I think it's useful to pair it with something else that you're super comfortable with and that is quite speedy, so you can just bang through one game in 15 minutes without really having to think, because you don't want to get to round 6, round 7 and be completely exhausted.
Yeah.
In this case, it's like the orb I have just played a lot of in the last 3 or 4 weeks, to the point where like there's a lot of decisions, there's a lot of things you can do, but you start to build the heuristics, and maybe you're not completely comfortable with it going into a tournament, but you have at least like some lines that you can fall back on and go like, okay, this is probably the right decision here. And just I think try not to worry too much about like the more complicated a deck is, the more likely that you are leaving like possible leverage at points in the game. Like there's no way you're going to play perfectly with a deck as complicated as World Tree Wu over 6 rounds. But I think it's like important to say like go into a tournament and say like, right, I expect to be looking back at every game and correcting myself, but I'm going to just enjoy the process of finding out what this can do.
Very nice. There's one question from chat. I think I want to ask one question from chat, and then I think I'm done with the questions that I have after that. Did Best Defense actually get anything with a cost greater than 0 this weekend?
I Best Defensed 1 fermenter.
There you go.
A single fermenter. But no, Best Defense is like 99.9% for no free launch.
Yeah, makes sense.
But no, there was one game where my opponent popped the no free lunch in response to Gaslight for the Best Defense, which happens quite a lot of the time. You don't even need to play it; it comes to hand, and they immediately pop the NFL for 3 credits. So then it got fired into a fermenter.
Yeah, I definitely remember seeing on stream you grabbing it. Someone popped the no free lunch, and I'm like, well, but now if they ever put down their last no free lunch, you've just 2 for 1. They've 2 for 1 themselves.
It's a difficult decision, right? Because like they kind of 2 for 1 themselves on the no free lunches, but if you don't pop it for the credits, then you get Econ Warfare hard hitting used, and you have nothing. Like, I can understand why that happens, but yeah, definitely, it's just like, well, I still have this. You never have an NFL again.
Yeah.
Orbs, Jeff, do y'all have any questions y'all want to ask?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I'll let Jeff go first if Jeff has any.
I'll pass it right back to you. So.
All right, I didn't realize we were going to play ping pong here. So, anywhoozle, MJP. So you are, I got to say, congratulations once again. You are the very first circuit breaker, it both being the title and the name of the tournament here. I got to ask, after doing your run here, coming up through the losers bracket, how does it feel to hold that title?
Yeah, that feels pretty great. Like it's nice to go through a cut the hard way, because you always sort of, if you lose the first game in a cut, I think they always just go like, oh, okay, that's over. That was nice. So it was fun. It was just a super fun event. Like a week or so ago, I wasn't entirely sure if I was going to play because I hadn't done a ton of practice against the new top corps. I had some other stuff to get done this weekend, which this was just like, I don't know. It seems like it's going to be fun, but big online events are always, I find them quite tiring just because it's a lot of JNet. But no, in the end, it was super fun. All my matches were great. It was nice to play through it, and very very happy with how that ended up. Just nice to get there with the ob deck.
Excellent. So a follow-up question to that would be: so this tournament was supposed to represent, a much larger or a much more focused and concentrated pool of top players than you would normally see at an event. Basically, trying to be an invitational sort of event where you had to demonstrate some sort of skill to sign on and play this. Knowing that, did you have any feelings going into the event once you had decided to play? Did you have any feelings about that or how you would do?
Yeah, I mean, I think mostly just in terms of expectations setting. Like, I mean, you never expect. I don't think at any Netrunner event anymore you ever expect to get like easy matches. And playing in the UK in particular, I mean, I guess it's true everywhere. Like every meta is becoming hardcore, but playing here, you go to a match, go to a tournament, you're like, oh, it's just someone small store champ, and then 2 world champions turn up, and you're just like, that's awful. But like, yeah, this I kind of was trying to approach it slightly more like the Intercontinentals events in past years, where you sort of go in and you're like, okay, you never know who you're gonna get round one. It's gonna be super super hard. I think it's gonna have to get really quite lucky with matchups in games. So no, just go in with sort of low expectations. But always play good decks.
Excellent. All right, so cards on the table here. One last question from me. If we were to invite you back as the reigning champion of the Circuit Breaker next year, would you attend?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I would be very happy to play more of these. They are a good time.
I thought you were gonna go with a if I'm remembering correctly, Orbs, and stop me if I'm wrong. You do get a likeness card as the Circuit Breaker.
Oh, that's a good point.
Ooh, absolutely, you do. So you will be awarded the reigning champion card. Unfortunately, the design team doesn't want us to hand out too many of those create your own cards anymore. But as an alternative, you do get a art commissioned, and if you would like, you can have your likeness on it. And next year at this same event, you're going to get to choose a promotional card to put that art on, and it will be one of the top prizes that's available.
That's cool.
So this isn't a commitment, but first instinct, what card do you want an alt of?
Oh man,
an alt that can have your likeness, notably.
Yeah, that's tricky. You don't want to get caught with your face on it banned. That's just. I need to think about that one.
All right.
You can wait until closer to the.
No, this was not
binding. This is a post-game interview. This isn't legally binding.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, we look forward to seeing what it is, and I think once again, just have to give the sincerest congratulations for becoming the first circuit breaker ever. Fantastic tournament, fantastic run through the top cut. You've had a hell of a Netrunner weekend, and I just want to give you the heartiest congratulations once again.
Thank you, and yeah, thanks for running and streaming everything.
Yeah.
Would you like to give, real quick before we end, would you like to give any shout outs while you're here?
Oh, thank you. I guess to shout out to the process and to the Snarebers because I stole most of their Hoshiko deck, so that'll do. Maybe we'll record another episode of the podcast at some point. No promises.
I think it's also, I want to give shout out to a bunch of people, all of the comm staff, Neuropanzer, Beeplum, we had a bunch of people, Radiant, Peter, Bilby, Nut, and Am I forgetting? Vesper. Yes, thank you. You all kept the air going. It was a lot of fun. And I also want to give a huge shout out. You didn't get to both NB Kelly and oh my goodness, Crore, who both did honestly the lion's share of the in-person judging. This event would not have happened without Orbs doing a ton of work behind the scenes and doing basically all of the data entry for stuff. So just want to give huge shout outs to everyone involved in helping making this a relatively smooth event across the board. So.
And give yourself a shout out here too for being the tournament organizer and running the stream. None of this would have happened without your work as well.
Absolutely. I do want to give Jeff a shout out and a bit of a poo in because my friend, you shouldn't be taking on 3 hats, running the stream, TOing, and judging. You got to delegate next time, my dude. But I really appreciate it and would shout you out. I +1 all of the other shout outs you gave, and one final shout out. Just I know it's cheesy, but that's how I am, so that's how it comes out. Massive shout out to the community, both tuning into the streams and talking about this event and talking on Slack and talking about the meta. So we do love y'all, and we hope that you continue to run.
All right, I think that's going to be a wrap for us today. I'll also give a quick shout out to Janktavist, who has been standing by when being interviewed, but I think it probably makes sense to call the stream here. Congrats once again to MJP, the circuit breaker. And, well, we'll see you before next year, but we also look forward to seeing you all next year for the circuit breaker as well.